Chapter 860. In the dark, Yi Xian quietly looked at the starry sky in the distance. There, one person was escaping and several people were chasing. In fact, with his strength, he could completely kill Li Yunqi. In fact, he could kill Li Yunqi, Jun Wuyan, and everyone else. If he fought them head-on, he was not sure that he could defeat Li Yunqi and the others. After all, these 5 people were not weak. It would be very difficult for him to fight 1 against 5. However, he had forgotten that he had the immeasurable sword. If he carried out an assassination, these people would not be able to stop him. However, this time, he did not directly kill them. This was because he knew that these people did not have simple backgrounds. If he killed the young ones, the old ones would come. It could be said that there was no end to them. Killing a few people was not meaningful at all. After all, he was not alone. He had many things to consider, such as the black-yellow great world, or the entire four-dimensional universe. Now, he was leading the people of the four-dimensional universe to fight against the people of the five-dimensional universe. In this situation, he could not rely on killing alone. He had to use some intelligence. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian disappeared. At the end of the distant starry sky, Li Yunqi was frantically escaping. The current him was a little crazy. He had obtained the treasure of the 5th dimension. There was a voice in his heart telling him that he had to give up this thing because it would bring him a disaster. However, this inner voice was quickly drowned out by his desire and ambition. The treasure of the 5th dimension. The treasure of the prophet. This tower could not only change his fate, but it could also change the fate of Demonic City. He, Li Yunqi, could use this treasure to become the most powerful person in Demonic City in tens of thousands of years and lead Demonic City to the peak of the 5th dimension. It was worth fighting for. Li Yunqi raised his head and looked at the end of the sky. At most a quarter of an hour, the experts of Demonic City would arrive. He only needed to hold on for a quarter of an hour. A quarter of an hour. Li Yunqi took a deep breath and began to accelerate crazily. At this moment, his speed was raised to the limit. Behind him, Jun Wuyan and the others were also chasing crazily. They knew that this was their chance. Once Li Yunqi brought the treasure back to the 5th dimension, it would be difficult for them to get it again. Thinking of this, Jun Wuyan and the others also accelerated crazily. Soon, Li Yunqi was getting closer and closer to the seal. At this moment, he clenched his fists tightly, and his blood was boiling. This was because he had already received news from the experts of Shanghai. The experts of Shanghai had already come out to pick him up. Obviously, Shanghai also approved of his actions this time. Once they obtained this 5th dimensional treasure, the fate of Demonic City would change. Of course, the reason why Shanghai dared to do this was because Shanghai itself was not weak. Very soon, Li Yunqi arrived at the seal of the dual realm sky. He raised his speed to the maximum. It was right in front of him. Because the powerhouses of Modus City were already behind this seal. As long as he could pass through this seal, he would be able to meet up with the powerhouses of Modus City. Just as Li Yunqi was about to enter the sealed area, a long spear suddenly pierced through the air. Like a bolt of lightning, the spear arrived in front of Li Yunqi in an instant. Li Yunqi was shocked. If he made a move, he would have to stop. As long as he stopped, Jun Wuyan and the others behind him would immediately catch up. And now, he had no choice but to stop. Because the spear's speed was too fast. Just as Li Yunqi was about to make a move, a powerful force suddenly attacked from the side. This force was even faster and directly hit the long spear. Boom! The long spear was instantly sent flying. Li Yunqi was slightly taken aback. Someone was helping him? Without thinking too much, Li Yunqi directly entered the sealed area and then disappeared into the starry sky. Behind him, Jun Wuyan and the others did not give up and madly chased after him. Very soon, Jun Wuyan and the others all disappeared into the starry sky of the four-dimensional universe. Below, the 2 men with long spears turned their heads and glanced to the right. They were the ones who had made a move just now. They also wanted to stop Li Yunqi, but they had been secretly stopped by someone. Who was it? Neither of them knew. Because the person who had made a move did not appear. At this moment, the man with long spears in the lead suddenly said, "Brother, what should we do now?" The man next to him raised his head and looked at the seal. "Let's go." After saying that, the two of them directly disappeared. On the right, Yi Xian walked out. It was him who had made a move just now. Yi Xian took a look at the sealed land and then disappeared from where he was. After the seal, as soon as Li Yunxi rushed out, an old man in a black robe suddenly appeared in front of him. The old man in the black robe grabbed Li Yunxi and said in a trembling voice, "How is it?" Li Yunxi immediately took out the world prison pagoda and then handed it to the old man in the black robe. "Elder." It was not that he had not thought of embezzling it, but he was very clear that with his strength, it was impossible for him to embezzle such a treasure. If he embezzled it, it would be a dead end. The old man in the black robe glanced at the world prison pagoda in his hand and said with some excitement, "It's the world prison pagoda." As he said that, he looked at Li Yunxi. "Well done." At this moment, Jun Wuyan and the others behind him had also caught up. Seeing the old man in the black robe, the faces of Jun Wuyan and the others immediately darkened. An expert from Shanghai. An expert of this level was not someone they could fight at all. The old man in the black robe glanced at Jun Wuyan and the others and said with a smile, "Everyone, this item is now in the custody of the old man. I don't need you to escort it." After saying that, he looked at Li Yunxi. "Let's go." Just at this moment, a few powerful auras suddenly assaulted them from afar. The old man's face instantly darkened when he saw this scene. In next to no time, a middle-aged man appeared in front of the old man in the black robe. When he saw this person, Jun Wuyan hurriedly walked over to the middle-aged man and bowed respectfully, "Uncle Wang." The person who had come was Jun Wuxian of the Qing Kingdom, the Qing Kingdom's prince. Beside the middle-aged man was a woman in a white dress, a veil over her face, and a zither on her back. At the side, Gu Qing walked over to the woman and bowed respectfully, "Martial Aunt." The Heavenly Sound Palace's Lin Miaoyin. Besides these two people, there were two other old men. They were the Qian clan's Grand Elder, Wan Yunzhong, and the He clan's Grand Elder, He Wanlian. The old man in the black robe suddenly laughed, "What? Are you going to rob me?" "Rob me?" At the side, Jun Wuyan suddenly laughed coldly, "Shanghai really doesn't even care about face." The old man's eyes narrowed slightly, "Kid, didn't the adults in your clan teach you to respect your elders?" Jun Wuxian suddenly said, "What's going on?" Jun Wuyan said in a deep voice, "Uncle Wang, it's like this. The five of us agreed to deal with Yi Xian together. We also agreed that if we obtained the fifth dimensional treasure, we would all share it. However, after we obtained the fifth dimensional treasure, Li Yunxi wanted to keep it for himself." Keep it for himself. Hearing this, Jun Wuxian and the others looked at the old man in the black robe with unfriendly expressions. Li Yunxi suddenly said, "Jun Wuyan, let me ask you, did you help to obtain this treasure?" Jun Wuyan asked in reply, "Then did you help?" Hearing this, Li Yunxi was also stunned. He really didn't help. He also didn't expect that Yi Xian would hand it over just like that. Jun Wuyan suddenly laughed coldly, "If it wasn't for us, would Yi Xian be afraid of you? Would he hand over that divine object so easily to you? Li Yunxi, this thing belongs to everyone, not just you. You want to keep it for yourself? In your dreams." Li Yunxi was about to speak when the old man in the black robe beside him suddenly laughed, "Everyone, let's not talk about reason. All the treasures in the world belong to those with power, right?" Jun Wuxian chuckled, "Why, Li Guangxing, do you think you're stronger than all of us?" Li Guangxing laughed, "I dare not. Who doesn't know that the king of the Qing kingdom has 2 purple runes? But..." At this point, he suddenly opened his palm. In his hand, there was a purple rune. In the next moment, the space around him and Li Yunxi began to directly become illusory. Space rune. Jun Wuxian's eyes narrowed slightly, "Want to leave? You're thinking too much." As soon as he finished speaking, he directly rushed out. Boom! A powerful force blasted the space where Li Yunqi and Li Guangxing were, and the entire space trembled. However, Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi who were in the space became more and more illusory. Obviously, they were about to disappear completely. Suddenly, Lin Miaoyin from the Heavenly Sound Palace suddenly tossed out a purple rune. The rune appeared directly above Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi. Li Guangxing's expression changed drastically when he saw the purple rune. Space Cage Rune. As soon as he finished speaking, the space around him began to shrink layer by layer. But right at this moment, a mysterious force suddenly appeared in this space. In the blink of an eye, Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi disappeared. Everyone was stunned. Lin Miaoyin suddenly looked to the right with a cold gaze. Who's there? As soon as she finished speaking, she waved her right hand, and the space that was 300 m away instantly exploded. However, there was no one there. Lin Miaoyin frowned slightly when she saw this. Jun Wuxian also glanced coldly at the space. He had sensed that someone had made a move just now, but the person's aura had only flashed for a moment, and he couldn't track it. Everyone's expressions were slightly unsightly. The pagoda of prison had fallen into the hands of the capital. Meanwhile, the He clan's Grand Elder spoke abruptly. Everyone, that treasure should have been shared by all of us. However, the capital went back on their word and intended to take it for themselves. We can't let this matter rest just like that. Jun Wuxian suddenly said, let's go to the capital. All of them gazed at Jun Wuxian, and the latter spoke softly, not many people are aware of this now. However, they'll be aware that the treasure has fallen into the capital's hands in 2 hours at most. At that time, it would be extremely difficult for us to obtain it again. We still have a chance if we go now. The He clan's Grand Elder spoke in a low voice, but that means that we have to fight them head-on. Jun Wuxian spoke indifferently, what else can we do? Should we just suffer for nothing? The He clan's Grand Elder fell silent for a short moment before he spoke fiercely, we can't afford to suffer such a loss. Let's go to the capital. If they don't hand it over today, then we'll flatten the capital. It didn't take long for all of them to leave. Their destination was the capital. The capital. The space above the capital suddenly split open. Then, Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi walked out. After they came out, Li Guangxing suddenly asked, that Yi Xian handed it over so easily? Li Guangxing nodded, yes. Li Guangxing was silent for a moment before he sneered, it seems that this Yi Xian is also a coward. Not only is he a coward, but he's also an idiot. He actually handed over such a divine item just like that. He's really stupid beyond measure. As he spoke, he looked at Li Yunqi, go and inform the Myriad Dimension Academy. Tell them that we've already obtained this item and ask them to send someone to retrieve it. Li Yunqi was stunned, uncle, you're going to hand it over? Li Guangxing nodded, this item isn't something that our capital can possess. We can only hand it over. Of course, we can't hand it over for nothing. We have to ask the Worldwide Academy for those benefits. Not only that. As he spoke, his eyes narrowed, this time, we have to borrow the blade of the Worldwide Academy to kill some of our opponents. As he spoke, a smile appeared on his face. As if he had thought of something, he looked at the World Prison Pagoda in his hand, this Yi Xian isn't just an ordinary idiot. He actually doesn't know how to use such a treasure. Idiot. Chapter 861. Not far away from Li Yunqi and Li Guangxing, Yi Xian stood there quietly. He was in an empty space, so the two of them couldn't find him at all. When he heard Li Guangxing's words, Yi Xian didn't feel happy, nor did he gloat. On the contrary, Li Guangxing gave him a reminder. People often thought that they were smart, thinking that everything was under their control. They didn't know that they were in the hands of others. Don't think too highly of yourself, and don't think too highly of others. Yi Xian glanced at Li Guangxing, who was not far away, and then quietly retreated. At this time, Li Yunqi disappeared. He was heading to the Worldwide Academy. As Li Guangxing had said, Shanghai didn't have such a treasure. If Shanghai dared to take it for themselves, they wouldn't live past the next day. Although Shanghai wasn't weak, in the vast fifth dimension, Shanghai wasn't considered the top. There weren't many forces that could destroy Shanghai, but there weren't many either. Therefore, when he obtained this treasure, Li Guangxing had already decided to hand it over. Of course, he wouldn't hand it over for nothing. Shanghai could use it to obtain many benefits. Li Guangxing glanced around, a trace of doubt in his eyes. At this moment, he suddenly remembered something. Just now, someone had secretly helped him. Who was it that helped him? What was the other party's goal? Li Guangxing frowned. On the other side, Yi Xian was sitting cross-legged in space. He asked in his heart, Miss Lian Xian, just now I saw them use that talisman. What kind of talisman was it? A moment later, Lian Xian's voice rang out. In this world, there's a profession known as a talisman master. This kind of person can gather all sorts of powerful energies and spatial divine abilities, and then draw them into a talisman. With this kind of talisman, even if you're an ordinary person, you'll still be able to release a powerful force. There are also strong and weak talismans. From weak to strong, they are blue, red, purple, orange, and the legendary black. The higher the level of the talisman, the more power it contains. Yi Xian frowned slightly. In other words, this kind of power isn't your own? Lian Xian said, yes. However, these runes are like your executing heaven sword. Do you think the executing heaven sword is considered your own power? Yi Xian was silent. Lian Xian continued, in the fifth dimension, there are not only talisman masters, but there are also alchemists and some refiners. These professions have extremely high statuses in the fifth dimension. In the past, before I went down, our fifth dimension already had talisman sect, medicine king sect, and refiner sect. These sects are extremely powerful and are only second to some special forces. Yi Xian asked, what special forces? Lian Xian said, for example, the Azura Hell. Yi Xian frowned. Why is Ling, or a special force? The blacksmith said, I can't explain it to you either. In short, that place isn't simple. Even the current Myriad Dimension Academy doesn't dare to provoke that place. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, Miss Lian Xian, what is the strongest power in the fifth dimension? Lian Xian said, it used to be the Myriad Dimension Academy because Master was there, but after Master disappeared, it might have been the Master of the fifth dimension. However, so much time has passed, so this place must have changed. Therefore, I don't know. Yi Xian nodded slightly. At this time, Lian Xian said, don't look down on those runes, especially those that have reached the purple level. The power contained within these runes is extremely powerful. You might not be able to resist it. Yi Xian frowned. So powerful? Lian Xian said, it is very powerful. Take a purple power rune for example. The power it contains is not inferior to your current power. Most importantly, it only needs to consume a bit of the user's spirit chi. If you were to use a powerful power, it would consume a lot of your own spirit chi. If this goes on, you'll definitely be at a disadvantage. And if you encounter an orange rune, the power of this rune is even more powerful. You must be extremely careful when you encounter this kind of rune. Don't be careless. Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Lian Xian, what rank is my Dao Law in this place? Lian Xian was silent. Yi Xian asked, what's wrong? Lian Xian said, I almost forgot about this. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. What do you mean? Lian Xian said, runes are within the scope of laws, and Dao laws are higher than laws. To put it simply, if you have the spatial Dao law, then all spatial runes are useless against you. In other words, you can easily suppress the other party. And your Dao law is a rune that targets the power of the earth and the power of the earth veins. In any case, as long as the other party borrows the power of the earth, your Dao law can suppress them. Yi Xian suddenly asked, what about the Dao law of dreams? Lian Xian said, in this world, there are some mysterious cultivators who specialize in the power of dreams. I remember that there was a dream accessing sect in the past. This sect had asked Master many times for the Tao Law of Dreams, but Master didn't give it to them because the sect leader of the dream accessing sect was very ambitious. Yi Xian said with a smile, Miss Lian Xian, in other words, as long as you are here, any sealing runes are useless against me, right? Lian Xian said, you can say that. Yi Xian smiled slightly. At this moment, he realized how terrifying the Tao laws he possessed were. At this moment, Lian Xian suddenly said, you have to be careful of a profession, curse masters. These people are very strange. If you encounter them, you must not underestimate them. Yi Xian was a little curious. What's a curse master? Lian Xian said, it's a rather evil profession. Back then, the founder of this profession was the cursed woman. She once used an extremely powerful forbidden heavenly curse technique on Master. However, she brought disgrace upon herself. In the end, she was suppressed and sealed by Master. However, this woman was also very powerful back then. Especially those curse techniques of hers, they are very strange. Because their curse techniques are based on karma, once you are entangled by them, you will be plagued by bad luck. In short, if you encounter such people, you have to be very careful. Yi Xian nodded, understood. Lian Xian continued, if there's a chance, you can find a powerful blacksmith and ask him to help you inscribe runes on your executing heaven sword. Yi Xian said in a low voice, do I need to inscribe runes on my sword too? Lian Xian said, runes can't replace your sword, but they can play a very good supporting role. For example, if there's an additional purple rune on your sword, the power of your sword will become even stronger. Or, if there's an additional rune that reduces consumption, then when you use this executing heaven sword, the consumption of spiritual energy will be greatly reduced. Yi Xian was a little curious, can it be done like this? Lian Xian said, yes, you can try it in the future. Yi Xian nodded. He raised his head and looked not far away. At this moment, several powerful auras came from the horizon. Jun Wuxian and the others had arrived. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. The show was about to start. In the sky above Shanghai, Li Guangxing looked at the horizon. He smiled coldly, without a trace of fear. Soon, Jun Wuxian and the others appeared in front of Li Guangxing. Jun Wuxian looked at Li Guangxing and slowly clenched his right hand. Just as he was about to attack, Li Guangxing suddenly said, everyone, do you really want to fight to the death? Jun Wuxian looked at Li Guangxing, if this item was obtained by your Shanghai Li clan, my Qing nation would definitely not touch it. However, this item was not obtained by your Li clan alone. It was obtained by everyone together. What right does your Li clan have to keep it to yourself? Li Guangfeng said in a low voice, Jun Wuxian, if it wasn't for Yunqi's plan, we wouldn't have been able to obtain this item. Therefore, it's only right that this item belongs to the Li family. Jun Wuxian still wanted to say something, but Lin Miaoyin suddenly spoke up, why are you wasting time with him? He's obviously trying to take it for himself. As soon as she finished speaking, she took a step forward and squatted down. At the same time, the guqin behind her appeared in front of her. She lightly plucked it with her fingers. The sound of the guqin resounded abruptly, and then the space in front of Li Guangxing was suddenly torn apart. Li Guangxing's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he suddenly stretched out his arms. After that, a pair of golden bracers appeared on his arms, and then he crisscrossed his arms and suddenly raised them forward to block the attack. Bang! 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 Numerous explosions resounded incessantly in the surroundings. Strands of white light that were as thin as a needle and thread were shuttling about incessantly around Li Guangxing, and Li Guangxing used his arms to resist them. Bang! Bang! Li Guangxing retreated repeatedly. A short moment later, he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, and then a ray of golden light suddenly erupted from his arms. Bang! The space in the surroundings trembled violently, and then it started to crack like a spider web. On Li Guangxing's arms were two strings that were as thin as a needle and thread. Moreover, countless cracks had appeared on Li Guangxing's golden bracers as well. The corners of Li Guangxing's mouth curled up slightly as he gazed at Lin Miaoyin. What a great sound attack. It really does live up to its reputation. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly pressed his palms together, and the bracers suddenly fused into a golden spear. He leaped up and stabbed the spear down from midair, and then a ray of light rained down from the tip of the spear like an umbrella. Lin Miaoyin glanced up at the sky, and then she suddenly pressed her hands against the zither strings. In the next moment, she suddenly released them. Bang! A deafening sound of a zither suddenly resounded, and then a ray of white light shot into the sky and enveloped Li Guangxing within it. Rumble. The space and the surroundings trembled, and then both of them retreated repeatedly. After Li Guangxing stopped moving, he gazed at the spear in his hand, and it had completely cracked apart. He waved his right hand lightly, and then a violet talisman suddenly appeared on the spear. In next to no time, the spear started to repair itself at an extremely swift pace. Lin Miaoyin suddenly said, "Let's attack together." Jun Wuxian nodded slightly, and he was just about to attack when a formidable aura suddenly appeared in the distance. Li Guangxing suddenly roared with laughter when he noticed the formidable aura. Ha ha ha. It didn't take long for an old man in a white robe to appear in front of Li Guangxing. There was a small, dimensional character on his chest. An expert from Myriad Dimension Academy. The old man gazed at Li Guangxing. "Where's the treasure?" Li Guangxing smiled. "So it's Elder Li Jinwu. Welcome to Shanghai, Elder Li." Li Jinwu gazed at Li Guangxing. "The treasure." Li Guangxing nodded slightly, and then he opened his palm. However, there was nothing in his palm. Li Guangxing frowned slightly, and then his expression changed in next to no time. The World Prison Pagoda? The pagoda? Li Guangxing's face was filled with astonishment. P.S. Because of the inspection, the update was delayed. Sorry. Chapter 862. At this moment, Li Guangxing's face was pale, and his hands were trembling. The pagoda had vanished. He didn't know how it had vanished. All he knew was that if he didn't take out the pagoda now, he would die without a complete corpse. Not only would he die without a complete corpse, but Shanghai would be dragged down as well. But why did the pagoda vanish? Li Guangxing's mind was filled with questions. Meanwhile, Li Jinwu from the Worldwide Academy frowned. "What's wrong?" Li Guangxing spoke in a low voice. "The pagoda is gone." "It's gone." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Li Jinwu was slightly stunned as well, and then his eyes narrowed slightly while a cold glint flickered within them. "Are you playing with the old man?" Li Guangxing spoke in a low voice. "Elder Li, the treasure really has vanished." "How dare you!" Li Jinwu suddenly roared furiously, and then he flicked his sleeve, causing a powerful force to sweep out. Bang! Li Guangxing instantly retreated explosively. On the other side, in the dark, Yi Xian's gaze fell on Li Jinwu, and he was somewhat shocked. This old man's strength was not ordinary. Li Guangxing felt extremely aggrieved. He knew that he and Shanghai had been schemed against. "Who's schemed against me?" As if he'd thought of something, he suddenly gazed at Jun Wuyan and the others. "It's all of you. You're the ones who framed Shanghai." Jun Wuyan gazed at Li Guangxing. "Li Guangxing, continue your performance. We'll just watch quietly." Li Guangxing gazed at Li Jinwu. "Elder Li, they're definitely the ones who joined forces to frame Shanghai. Elder Li, please investigate this." Li Jinwu looked at Li Guangxing. "You asked your Shanghai disciples to inform me that the treasure is in your hands. Just now, when I asked you, you were prepared to give it to me. But now, you're telling me that they framed you. Do you think I'm stupid?" Li Guangxing's expression was quite unsightly. Li Jinwu's eyes narrowed slightly. "Li Guangxing, according to the old man, you're trying to take the treasure of the Worldwide Academy for yourself. The old man will give you one last chance. If you don't hand it over, then the old man will torture you today." Li Guangxing's expression was ugly to the extreme. At this moment, he felt extremely wronged. Seeing that Li Guangxing didn't speak, Li Jinwu suddenly disappeared. Li Guangxing was greatly alarmed when he saw this scene. He immediately turned around and ran. His speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he entered Demonic City. But in next to no time, a powerful force directly sent him flying. Everyone was stunned. An old man walked out of Demonic City. Li Guangxing, who was blasted flying, hurriedly said, "Ancestor, save me." Ancestor. The old man in front of him was the number one figure in Shanghai, Li Nianxing. Li Nianxing didn't look at Li Guangxing. Instead, he looked at Li Jinwu, who was not far away. "Brotherly, you should know that even if you gave us 100 guts, we wouldn't dare to take this item for ourselves. Moreover, if we wanted to take this item for ourselves, we wouldn't have informed you." Li Jinwu said, "Then give me an explanation." Li Nianxing nodded. "Of course." As he spoke, he looked at Li Guangxing. "Explain?" Li Guangxing said in a low voice, "It was still in my spatial ring just now. But when Elderly came here, the treasure suddenly disappeared." Jun Wuxian sneered. "Suddenly disappeared? Can't you make up a better reason? This chapter isn't finished. Please continue." Li Guangxing said in a low voice, "I feel that someone is framing Demonic City." Meanwhile, Jun Wuxian shook his head. "I feel that Demonic City is treating us like fools." As he spoke, he looked at Li Jinwu. "Elderly, we can all testify that the treasure is in Li Guangxing's hands. In my opinion, the Li family wants to take it for themselves. Elderly, I suggest that we directly destroy Demonic City." Jun Wuxian. Li Guangxing stared fixedly at Jun Wuxian. "You want my Li family to die so badly? What? Is the death of my Li family beneficial to you?" Jun Wuxian smiled. "Li Guangxing, what did you say to us before? Such a divine item, if you have the strength to obtain it, you can run away with it. Now, you called Elderly of the Myriad Dimensional Academy over and told him that the pagoda disappeared. Are you insulting our intelligence?" Li Guangxing was about to speak when Li Jinwu suddenly said, "Li family, the old man doesn't want to waste words with you. I'll give you one last chance. If you don't hand over the treasure, Demonic City will disappear from this world today." Li Nianxing looked at Li Guangxing. "That item, is it in your hands?" Li Guangxing shook his head. "It's not in my hands." When he spoke up to here, he seemed to have thought of something, and he hurriedly said, "When Chi and I used the spatial talisman to escape earlier, someone was helping us from the shadows. It's absolutely that person who helped us." "Right, it's absolutely that person who's playing tricks." Sigh. Li Nianxing shook his head and sighed. "Such a divine item fell into your hands so easily. Even if you think with your toes, you should know that it's not normal." Li Guangxing slightly lowered his head. "I was stupid." Li Nianxing looked at Li Jinwu. "Brotherly, has this matter been resolved?" Li Jinwu was about to speak when Li Nianxing suddenly said, "Actually, Brotherly should also know that there's something fishy about this matter. Firstly, Yi Xian handing over the item so easily is not normal. Secondly, Yun Qi being able to bring it back so easily is also not normal. Thirdly, Guangxing isn't stupid. If he really wanted to keep the item for himself, he wouldn't have sent someone to invite Brotherly. To be honest, the life and death of Demonic City isn't important. What's important is that if we are all used by others to kill each other, then the real mastermind will definitely laugh his head off." At this point, he cupped his fists at the crowd. "Everyone, we have more or less a grudge between us. However, there is indeed something fishy about today's matter. Please give my Li family a chance and let my Li family investigate this matter thoroughly. Of course, during the investigation, no one from my Li family will leave Demonic City. If we can't find anything, the old man and Guangxing are willing to pay with their lives." Hearing this, everyone was silent. Although everyone wanted Li Guangxing to die, they weren't stupid. Now that they thought about it, the matter was indeed fishy. The Worldwide Academy spent so much money but still couldn't obtain a fifth-dimensional treasure, yet a little disciple from the Li family managed to obtain it. Moreover, he even brought it back safely. Was this normal? It was definitely not normal. Could it be that someone was secretly planning all of this? Li Jinwu was also silent. He was the clearest about how much the Academy had paid for the World Prison Pagoda. Even so, the Academy still couldn't bring it back. However, this Li Yunqi from the Li family actually obtained it so easily. On the way here, he felt that something was wrong. Not far away, Li Guangxing suddenly said, "Yes, this matter itself is fishy." Speaking up to this point, he seemed to have thought of something, and he hurriedly said, "Maybe it was Yi Xian who did it." This chapter isn't finished, please continue. This person has a meticulous mind. Furthermore, he isn't a useless person. It's impossible for him to hand over this item so easily. Yet, he handed it over so easily. There's definitely something fishy going on. I feel that he's the mastermind behind this. Perhaps, he's here. Yi Xian is here? Everyone glanced at the surroundings, but they didn't notice anything. Right at this moment, Lin Miaoyin suddenly said, "Let's not talk about that for now. Li Guangxing, you said that the treasure isn't on you. Do you dare to let me search you?" Li Guangxing spoke in a low voice, "Sure." Lin Miaoyin looked at Li Jinwu, and the latter looked at Li Guangxing. Li Jinwu's gaze fell on a spatial ring on Li Guangxing's hand. He pointed at it, and the spatial ring exploded. As soon as the ring exploded, a small black pagoda appeared in front of everyone. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they saw this black pagoda. Even Li Guangxing himself was petrified. He's still here? Li Guangxing's face was filled with disbelief. This. Li Jinwu's expression instantly became ferocious when he saw the black Xiao Ta, Li Guangxing. You actually dared to play tricks on the old man. Die for the old man. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged over. Li Guangxing's expression instantly changed when he saw Li Jinwu suddenly attack. He wasn't a match for Li Jinwu at all, so he immediately turned around and ran towards Li Nianqing, "Ancestor, save me." Meanwhile, Li Nianqing suddenly vanished. He attacked. However, he didn't attack Li Jinwu, but Li Guangxing. He was extremely swift, and Li Guangxing's head was smashed into pieces before Li Guangxing could even react. As soon as Li Guangxing's soul appeared, Li Nianqing waved his right hand, and a strand of flames enveloped Li Guangxing's soul. Ah! Li Guangxing's miserable and shrill cries resounded incessantly from within the flames. It didn't take long for him to vanish completely. Everyone looked at Li Nianqing. Li Nianqing sent the World Prison Pagoda to Li Jinwu, elderly. This item originally belonged to the Myriad Dimension Academy. Now, it shall be returned to its rightful owner. Li Jinwu glanced at Li Nianqing, then he put the World Prison Pagoda away before turning around and leaving. Jun Wuyan and the others fell silent when they saw Li Jinwu leave. They knew that Li Jinwu had given up on destroying the capital. Needless to say, Li Nianqing was very smart. If he didn't kill Li Guangxing, then the entire capital would be in danger. But he'd killed Li Guangxing himself, and it could be said to have calmed Li Jinwu's rage. Li Nianqing glanced at Jun Wuyan and the others. "Everyone, this item has fallen into the hands of the Myriad Dimension Academy. If you want it, then go look for them." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Jun Wuyan and the others fell silent for a moment before leaving as well. Go look for the Myriad Dimension Academy? Naturally, they did not dare to look for him. This Myriad Dimensional Academy was not Demonic City. Although the prophet was no longer around, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. This Myriad Dimensional Academy was still one of the top powers in the fifth dimension. In next to no time, everyone dispersed. Down below in the capital, Li Nianqing suddenly stopped and said in a light voice, "I know you're in the shadows. This matter was caused by my Li clan's greed, and my Li clan deserves it. My Li clan won't take revenge, so I hope you can be magnanimous and let my Li clan off." After a short moment, the space behind Li Nianqing trembled slightly, but it quickly returned to normal. Li Nianqing slowly closed his eyes. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 863. Revenge? It wasn't that Li Nianqing hadn't thought about revenge, but he knew that he couldn't do it. He had already guessed that the person behind all of this was Yi Xian. Because if the World Prison Pagoda was so easy to obtain, why would Myriad Dimension Academy return empty-handed and issue an arrest warrant? There was only one explanation for Yi Xian handing it over so easily, and that was to divert the conflict. And Yi Xian had succeeded. If he wanted to take revenge, then Li Guangxing wouldn't be the only one who would die, but the entire Shanghai. The Li family couldn't get involved in this mess. Li Nianqing sighed softly and walked down. At this moment, he seemed to be getting older. Yi Xian didn't stay in Shanghai. Instead, he followed Li Jinwu from Myriad Dimension Academy in the dark. He knew that humans were greedy, and as long as they had greed, he could use it. Yi Xian followed him, and the two of them got closer and closer to Myriad Dimension Academy. In the dark, Yi Xian looked at Li Jinwu with doubt in his eyes. Could this guy really be so selfless? Just at this moment, Li Jinwu suddenly stopped. In the dark, Yi Xian stopped as well. He quietly looked at Li Jinwu, who just stood there. After about 15 minutes, Li Jinwu opened his palm, and the World Prison Pagoda appeared in his hand. Looking at the World Prison Pagoda, Li Jinwu's eyes flashed with hesitation. Greed? He didn't have such thoughts. Because he knew that if he had such thoughts, he would die without a complete corpse. His position in Myriad Dimension Academy wasn't low, but if he dared to covet this item, not only would he lose his current position, he would also die a horrible death. This treasure wasn't something someone with his strength could possess. However, he was still curious. After looking at the World Prison Pagoda for a long time, the hesitation in Li Jinwu's eyes turned into determination. In the end, he chose not to think about the World Prison Pagoda. He knew that once a person opened the door to greed, it wouldn't be closed again. Thinking of this, Li Jinwu prepared to put away the World Prison Pagoda. However, at this moment, the World Prison Pagoda suddenly trembled. Then, the door to the first level of Xiao Ta's pagoda opened. Seeing this, Li Jinwu was stunned. The tower door opened? Could it be that the prison pagoda had acknowledged him? Thinking of this, Li Jinwu was a little excited, but he forced himself to calm down. At this time, Xiao Ta slightly trembled, as if he was trying to express something. Li Jinwu hesitated for a moment before asking softly, "You want to recognize me as your master?" Xiao Ta quickly nodded. Seeing this, Li Jinwu could not help but clench his fists. At this moment, he was feeling extremely complicated. He never thought that Xiao Ta would want to recognize him as his master. Hesitation. He was very rational. He knew that once this Xiao Ta recognized him as his master, he would become a traitor of Myriad Dimension Academy. At that time, his enemies would spread throughout the entire fifth dimension. Could they have this tower? Reason told him that he couldn't accept it. However, on the contrary, this was also a great opportunity. This was a treasure left behind by a prophet. If he could obtain it, he would definitely obtain great fortune. Hesitation. At this moment, he was unprecedentedly conflicted. At this time, the World Prison Pagoda suddenly trembled, and then lightly floated in front of him, lightly rubbing against his hand. It was very intimate. He could feel that this Xiao Ta was very eager to recognize him as his master. In the same place, Li Jinwu was silent for a very long time. Finally, he slowly closed his eyes. About a quarter of an hour later, he suddenly opened his eyes. He raised his head to look at the horizon and softly said, "In life, we often need to gamble." With that, he grabbed the World Prison Pagoda, turned around, and disappeared into the boundless horizon. This direction was completely opposite to Myriad Dimension Academy. In the dark, the corner of Yi Xian's mouth slightly rose. He looked at the crystal ball in his hand. Just now, He had used this crystal ball to record everything that had just happened. At this time, Lian Qian's voice suddenly resounded in his mind. "You're really bad." Yi Xian laughed. "They're worse than me, aren't they?" Lian Qian said, "You still need to focus on increasing your strength." Yi Xian nodded. "I know." As he said this, he seemed to have thought of something and immediately asked, "Miss Lian Qian, how are the realms in the fifth dimension divided? Or is it the same as the fourth dimension?" Lian Qian said, "Of course it's different. The realms in the fifth dimension are a bit more complicated than the realms in the fourth dimension." Yi Xian said, "Miss Lian Qian, please enlighten me." Lian Qian softly said, "At the beginning of heaven and earth, all living things were born. Vitality began to sprout, establishing the universe, awakening the yin and yang, distributing vitality, giving birth to harmony. This is how humans are. Humans have 8 extraordinary meridians, which are born in the body. The number of meridians is innumerable. They harmonize the center, which is the source of spirit. Those who are capable can comprehend the order of the 4 seasons of heaven and earth, learn the breathing method of the 8 extraordinary meridians, close their eyes, and enter the path of cultivation. They can see the location of their body and soul, which is as small as a grain in the sky, but as bright as the universe. Only then can they cleanse their heart and change their marrow." Speaking up to this point, she slightly paused, then continued, "The realms here are related to the 8 extraordinary meridians of a person. I won't tell you about the lower realms. The primordial realm, establishing the universe, awakening the yin and yang, understanding life and death, breaking through the mysteries of heaven, understanding karma, and entering the cycle of reincarnation. Your realm in the 4th dimension is the life-breaking realm. Here, in terms of battle strength, it's equivalent to this world's cosmos realm. Strictly speaking, it's not even that. Of course, your battle strength has at least reached the yin-yang realm." After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked, "What does establishing the universe mean?" Lian Qian said, "Qian is the sky, and Kuan is the earth. Qian Kuan refers to heaven and earth. Establishing the universe means that you have a certain understanding of heaven and earth. For example, you know how spiritual qi is formed, how space is formed, and the nature of all living things. You're equivalent to a cosmos realm now. However, you're a swordsman, and a swordsman who has broken through to the next realm. In addition, you have the executing heaven sword, the soul-suppressing sword, the special bloodline, and your body. Therefore, your battle strength is not lower than a yin-yang realm expert. However, if you meet a life and death realm expert, you're no match for him." Yi Xian asked, "What realm is Chen Tian?" Lian Qian said, "At least heaven's secret." After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked again, "What about the woman in the plain dress?" "The woman in the plain dress." Lian Qian was silent. Yi Xian asked, "What's wrong?" Lian Qian said softly, "She can even sever karma. Therefore, she's at least. No, she can't be measured by realm. She's not within the rules. So, please don't ask me such stupid questions next time. Otherwise, I'll hit you." Yi Xian was speechless. Lian Qian continued, "You have to remember that one's cultivation level isn't everything. Take you for example. You're very deceptive because your cultivation level is low, but your battle prowess is high. Of course, it's because of your bloodline and that set of godly equipment you have." Yi Xian nodded. Zhang Xian nodded. "I understand." Lian Qian continued, "Other than that, there are some special professions, such as those spell masters and some talisman masters. In short, don't underestimate anyone." "Underestimate?" Yi Xian shook his head. How could he dare to underestimate others? Unbeknownst to him, people often died because they underestimated their enemies. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian turned around and left. This matter wasn't over yet. In fact, it was just the beginning. The current him couldn't face these experts from the 5th dimension head-on. Myriad Dimensional Academy. Myriad Dimensional Academy was built on a cliff that was tens of thousands of meters high. This cliff was the famous ocean cliff of the fifth dimension. It was also the place where the Prophet established Myriad Dimensional Academy. There were countless worldwide academies, but there was only one Myriad Dimensional Academy, and that was this place. This place could be said to be the Holy Land in the hearts of countless worldwide academy students. Somewhere in the library, Chen Tian was sitting quietly. In his hand was an ancient book. At this time, an old man quietly appeared not far from Chen Tian. The old man said softly, entering the martial realm disappeared. It can be confirmed. After a moment of silence, Chen Tian said softly, greed. The old man said softly, yes, I shouldn't have let him go. I should have gone myself. Chen Tian shook his head. Entering the martial realm has followed you for so many years. You should be very clear about his personality. He isn't the kind of person who can't resist temptation. There's something fishy about this matter. The old man nodded. That Yi Xian handed over the World Prison Pagoda so easily. This matter is extremely strange. According to my investigation, although this person is a swordsman, he is very cunning and often uses despicable methods. This time, he must be playing some kind of trick. After saying this, he paused and said, if I'm not wrong, he might have already arrived in the fifth dimension. Chen Tian smiled. This person is quite scheming. Interesting. The old man said in a deep voice, what should we do now? Chen Tian said softly, find Jin Wu. Of course, find him secretly. Don't let others know that he has already left my 10,000 Dimensions Academy with the World Prison Pagoda. The old man nodded. If others knew that Li Jinwu had escaped with the World Prison Pagoda, needless to say, there would definitely be countless people looking for Li Jinwu. At that time, the matter would become even more chaotic. The old man turned around and left. Chen Tian stood up and looked in front of him. There was a portrait in front of him. It was the portrait of the plain-clothed woman. Chen Tian looked at the portrait of the plain-clothed woman and said with a smile, don't you like to play chess? Then I'll accompany you. This Yi Xian's life is mine. No one can protect him. Qingshan City. This was a small city that didn't belong to any faction. On this day, a man came to the small city. This man was Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked around. There weren't many people in the city. Of course, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that he found that there was no difference between the people here and the people in the fourth dimension. Yi Xian came to the center of the city. This place was quite bustling. There were many people, and they were all cultivators. Yi Xian opened his palm, and a crystal ball flew out from his hand. The crystal ball flew into the air, and in next to no time, a scene appeared on the battlefield. It was the scene of Li Jinwu fleeing with the World Prison Pagoda. There was even sound, and it was exactly the same. Everyone in the surroundings was looking at the scene revealed by the crystal ball. Yi Xian smiled and turned around to leave. At this moment, he suddenly frowned. Beside him, a sharp gaze was staring at him. P.S. Your monthly votes are mine. Chapter 864. Yi Xian turned around and saw a man standing not far away. No, it was a woman. However, she was dressed as a man. The woman had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. Her gaze was as sharp as a blade, giving off an invisible pressure. Yi Xian ignored her and turned to leave. In the distance, the woman's lips curled up. Interesting. After saying that, she followed him. Yi Xian left the town. He had achieved his goal. He knew that it wouldn't be long before many people in the fifth dimension knew that Li Jinwu had escaped with the treasure. As a result, there would definitely be countless people looking for Li Jinwu. As long as there were people looking for Li Jinwu, his goal would be achieved. After Yi Xian left the small town, he walked towards the deep mountains in the distance. The woman followed behind him. She was brazenly following him. After entering the mountains, Yi Xian stopped. Behind him, the woman smiled. This place is not bad. It's a good place to kill. Yi Xian turned to look at the woman. You are? The woman smiled. Xiahou Jin. Yi Xian said, why do you keep following me? The woman sized up Yi Xian and smiled. How should I address you? Yi Xian said, why do you keep following me? The woman stopped not far from Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian and smiled. You are Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned. He was shocked. The person in front of him knew his true identity. Who was this person? Without thinking too much, Yi Xian clenched his right hand. He was filled with killing intent. Xiahou Jin smiled. Young Master Yi wants to kill me to silence me? Yi Xian was silent. Xiahou Jin smiled. Young Master Yi, since I dared to follow you, do you think I would be afraid of you killing me? Of course, let me state that I have nothing to do with the Worldwide Academy. Moreover, I'm not young Master Ye's enemy. How did you know my identity? Yi Xian asked softly. This was what he was most curious about. Xiahou Jin said with a smile, I also have some understanding of Li Yinqi from the Li family. Among the younger generation of the Li family, he is considered a well-known figure. However, in my opinion, he still doesn't have the ability to obtain the fifth-dimensional treasure. And he got it, and he even got it so easily. There's only one explanation, and that's young Master Yi gave it to him on purpose. Yi Xian said, how can you be so sure? Xiahou Jin smiled and said, because I've investigated young Master Yi. Young Master Yi had come this far from being an unpopular disciple of a small family. How could he be an ordinary person? Moreover, according to my investigation, young Master Ye's strength should far surpass that of Li Yunqi and the rest. Moreover, young Master Yi isn't the kind of person who's afraid of death. Therefore, young Master Yi took the initiative to hand over this item. It's obvious that he wants to shift the conflict. Young Master Yi is protecting himself, and also protecting the four-dimensional universe. Yi Xian was silent. Xiahou Jin continued, now, young Master Yi has played the Worldwide Academy in the palm of his hand through this pagoda. I have to say, young Master Yi is really amazing. If my guess is correct, the fifth-dimensional treasure has already recognized young Master Yi as its master. Because without its cooperation, it's impossible for young Master Yi to use it. Yi Xian was still silent. However, a ray of sword light had already appeared in his palm. He wasn't a merciful person. If he met someone who deserved to be killed, he definitely wouldn't be lenient. Xiahou Jin smiled and said, young Master Yi, let me give you a piece of advice. Do you want to hear it? Yi Xian said, speak. Xiahou Jin said, these plans of yours are very good, and they've all succeeded. However, those big shots must have already seen through your schemes. And they, including the Worldwide Academy, must have already guessed that you're the mastermind behind all this. Yi Xian smiled and said, and then? Xiahou Jin was about to speak, but suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. She glanced at Yi Xian and said, this isn't a conspiracy at all, it's an open conspiracy. As long as they want that treasure, as long as they're greedy, they'll fall into your trap. Yi Xian glanced at Xiahou Jin and didn't say anything. Xiahou Jin looked at Yi Xian and said, young Master Yi, you're playing with fire. Yi Xian said softly, Miss Xiahou, if I'm not wrong, you and I didn't meet by chance. You came to find me on purpose, right? Xiahou Jin smiled and said, yes. Yi Xian said, Miss Xiahou, if there's anything you want to say, just say it. As you know, I'm a little busy right now. Xiahou Jin smiled slightly and said, young Master Yi, I want to make a deal with you. Yi Xian nodded and said, tell me about it. Xiahou Jin looked at Yi Xian and said, we want to borrow the Tao laws of sealing in this pagoda. Tao laws of sealing. Lian Qian. Yi Xian said, you want to borrow the Tao laws of sealing? Xiahou Jin nodded and said, yes. Yi Xian said, what can I get in return? Xiahou Jin smiled and said, "You'll get an ally." Yi Xian shook his head and said, "Give me something practical." Ally? He didn't believe her. Some people could share riches, but they couldn't share hardships. Moreover, he completely believed that this person in front of him and the people behind him wouldn't become enemies with the Worldwide Academy because of him. Therefore, it was better to give him some practical benefits. Xiahou Jin smiled and said, "How about this? 2 purple talismans." Purple talismans. Yi Xian was about to speak when Lian Xian suddenly said, "Ask her for an orange talisman." Yi Xian looked at Xiahou Jin and said, "I want an orange talisman." Xiahou Jin shook her head and said, "Young Master Yi, we're just borrowing your Tao laws of sealing, not asking for them. Aren't you asking for too much?" Yi Xian turned around and left. At this moment, Xiahou Jin suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, I think the Worldwide Academy would be very interested in your whereabouts." Yi Xian suddenly disappeared as if he had evaporated from the face of the earth. Xiahou Jin frowned slightly and looked around. However, she didn't find Yi Xian. Yi Xian disappeared? Xiahou Jin used her divine sense to sweep the surroundings once more, but she still didn't find Yi Xian. Right at this moment, a strand of sword light suddenly appeared behind Xiahou Jin. Xiahou Jin's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she forcefully flashed over 30 m to the right. However, one of her arms had flown off. However, the space she was in had exploded apart, and the force of the explosion caused Yi Xian to retreat repeatedly. In the distance, Xiahou Jin, who'd lost an arm, gazed at Yi Xian. She was just about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly vanished, and a strand of sword light instantly appeared in front of her. Xiahou Jin's eyes narrowed slightly when she saw this scene. She tapped the tip of her foot lightly, and a green light flashed beneath her feet. When Yi Xian's sword arrived before her, she'd vanished. Yi Xian's sword stabbed air, and he immediately turned invisible. Both of them had vanished. But right at this moment, the space in the surroundings suddenly trembled, and Xiahou Jin's expression changed drastically. Spatial Tao Law. She just finished speaking when the space in front of her split apart, and then a strand of sword light stabbed out. What a swift sword strike! Xiahou Jin was shocked. She suddenly pushed her fair hand forward, and a violet talisman appeared at the center of her palm. There was a huge word inscribed on the talisman, "Defend." At the instant that Yi Xian's sword stabbed over, the word "Defend" suddenly transformed into a shield of light that blocked in front of her. Bang! Along with an explosion, the shield of light exploded apart, and Xiahou Jin was blasted back. Xiahou Jin was shocked when she saw this scene. She hadn't expected that a single strike of Yi Xian's sword would actually destroy her defensive violet talisman. Yi Xian's sword. Xiahou Jin's expression became extremely solemn as she gazed at the sword in Yi Xian's hand. The sword in Yi Xian's hand wasn't an ordinary sword at all. Xiahou Jin hurriedly said when she saw that Yi Xian was about to attack again, "Young Master Yi, my words were rude just now. Young Master Yi, please forgive me." However, Yi Xian didn't hold back. This time, Xiahou Jin didn't dodge. When Yi Xian's sword was still 1.5 m away from her, she suddenly said, "I'll give you the orange talisman." Yi Xian's sword stopped moving, and he looked at Xiahou Jin. "Give it to me." Xiahou Jin said in a low voice, "It's not on me." As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Xian's sword stabbed half an inch into the space between her brows. Meanwhile, Xiahou Jin suddenly said, "I can give it to you." Yi Xian put his sword away and glanced coldly at Xiahou Jin. "Are you trying to paint a picture for me?" Xiahou Jin said in a low voice, "I mean what I say." At this point, she looked at Yi Xian. "We have no intention of becoming enemies with you. We just want to cooperate with you. Believe me, if we cooperate, it will be very beneficial to you." Yi Xian looked at Xiahou Jin. "Cooperation is fine, but I don't like it when others threaten me." Xiahou Jin nodded. "I understand." At this moment, she realized that she had seriously underestimated Yi Xian's strength. Yi Xian was much stronger than what she had investigated, at least a few times stronger. Xiahou Jin said softly, "Brother Yi, follow me." Yi Xian glanced at Xiahou Jin and said in his heart, "Miss Lian Qian, is it worth the risk?" Lian Qian said, "An orange talisman is completely worth it. Moreover, you have the immeasurable sword. If things go south, you can leave at any time." Yi Xian nodded slightly and followed her. On the way, Xiahou Jin suddenly smiled and said, "Brother Yi, may I ask if the treasure of the fifth dimension has really recognized you as its master?" Yi Xian said, "Miss Xiahou, we are only cooperating, right?" Xiahou Jin nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian said, "Then don't ask so much. Also, I want to obtain that orange talisman first." Xiahou Jin was silent for a moment before nodding. "Sure." Not long after, the two of them arrived in front of an ancient city. The city walls were covered with all kinds of mysterious runes. In addition, there was a huge rune in the sky above the city. The entire city looked extremely eerie. Seeing this city, Yi Xian frowned slightly. What was this place? Yi Xian looked at Xiahou Jin. "What do you want me to do?" Xiahou Jin said, "I hope that Brother Yi can help us remove a seal." Yi Xian asked again, "What seal?" Xiahou Jin smiled. "Brother Yi will know when the time comes." With that, she quickened her pace. Yi Xian glanced at Xiahou Jin before following her. At this moment, Lian Qian suddenly said, "This place is a bit strange. Be careful." Yi Xian nodded. He suddenly stopped. At this moment, Xiahou Jin turned to look at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi?" Yi Xian said, "Miss Xiahou, I want that orange talisman." Xiahou Jin looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. At this moment, several powerful auras suddenly appeared on the scene. Yi Xian opened his palm and a sword appeared in his hand. "I can't stop once I start killing." Chapter 865. Xiahou Jin, who stood across from Yi Xian, glanced at Yi Xian and smiled. "I told you, we have no ill intent towards young Master Yi." She turned to look to her right as she spoke. "Grandfather, I've already promised to give him an orange talisman, and he'll help us remove the seal." Meanwhile, an old man walked over from the right. The old man walked over and stood over 10 m away from Yi Xian. "Remove the seal first." Yi Xian shrugged, turned around, and left. The old man frowned slightly when he saw this, and he was about to attack when Xiahou Jin suddenly shook her head. The old man fell silent for a moment, and then he flicked his finger, causing an orange talisman to appear in front of Yi Xian. An orange talisman. Yi Xian glanced at the talisman in front of him. "Senior, what talisman is this?" Lian Qian replied, "I'll study it for you." Even Senior doesn't know? It's not like I know everything." Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, the old man in front of Yi Xian spoke abruptly. "I wonder if you're able to make a move now?" Yi Xian looked at the old man and nodded. "Take me there." The old man turned around and left. Yi Xian followed, and it didn't take long for the three of them to arrive before an old well. Yi Xian glanced at the mouth of the well. The mouth of the well was covered in black talisman markings, and there were 4 pitch-black iron chains around the mouth of the well. The iron chains were thick like pillars, and they sunk into the mouth of the well. Yi Xian frowned slightly. "What's this?" The old man glanced at Yi Xian. "There's an extremely powerful seal within the mouth of the well. You just have to remove the seal, and everything else has nothing to do with you." Yi Xian glanced at the mouth of the well, and he could faintly hear roars coming from within. Yi Xian said in his heart, "Miss Lian Qian, can you remove the seal?" Lian Qian replied, "There's no seal in this world that I can't remove. Once the seal is undone, leave quickly." Yi Xian asked, "Why?" Lian Qian said, "The aura in this dry well is very strong, and very evil. It's definitely not a good person. Once the seal is lifted, you should leave immediately. Don't get involved in these troublesome matters. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Senior, make your move. As soon as he finished speaking, the space between his eyebrows suddenly split open. Immediately after, a ray of white light suddenly surged out from between his eyebrows. This ray of white light instantly entered the dry well. When this white light entered the dry well, the black runes around the dry well actually began to dim. At the same time, the chains began to shake violently. The old man's expression instantly became slightly excited when he saw this. A moment later, the black runes around the dry well suddenly disappeared. Boom! A powerful aura surged out from the well and into the sky. Lian Xian's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind, retreat. Without any hesitation, Yi Xian turned around and ran. He was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horizon. At the moment when Yi Xian disappeared, a man floated out from the dry well. The man's entire body was blood red, and in his hands, there were 2 blood-red spheres floating. When he saw this person, the old man hurriedly knelt down on one knee. Xiahou family's 107th generation descendant, Xiahou Wu, greets the Blood Emperor. The Blood Emperor looked at the horizon and said softly, "What a special bloodline." As he spoke, he looked at Xiahou Wu, who was in front of him. Who was that person just now? The Blood Emperor said in a deep voice, Yi Xian. The Blood Emperor slowly closed his eyes. I want the power of his bloodline to find him. Hearing this, Xiahou Wu hesitated for a moment before he said, this Yi Xian is not simple. He's very complicated, the Blood Emperor suddenly said, I'll take care of everything. Xiahou Wu didn't say anything else. He immediately nodded and left with Xiahou Jin. At this moment, the Blood Emperor said, your Xiahou family has protected me for many years. Now that I've come into being, the Xiahou family will naturally receive benefits. As he spoke, he waved his right hand, and numerous spatial rings fell in front of Xiahou Wu. Xiahou Wu glanced at them, and he was wild with joy. He hurriedly knelt down on one knee again. My Xiahou family is willing to go through fire and water for the Blood Emperor. The Blood Emperor nodded slightly. Find that person just now. Xiahou Wu hurriedly said, understood. After he spoke, he left with Xiahou Jin. After the two of them left, the Blood Emperor looked at the horizon again. What a pity. I shouldn't have hesitated just now. On the other side, Xiahou Jin said in a deep voice, Father, if we go find trouble with Yi Xian, it means that we'll be embroiled in the current dispute. Xiahou Wu said softly, there's no other way. We only have one way out now, and that is to cling tightly to the Blood Emperor. Xiahou Jin still wanted to say something, but Xiahou Wu suddenly said, leave the Xiahou family. Xiahou Jin looked at Xiahou Wu. Xiahou Wu said softly, my Xiahou family has no choice but to be embroiled in this dispute, but you can't. Leave the Xiahou family. Do you understand what I mean? Xiahou Jin was silent. Xiahou Wu looked at Xiahou Jin. When I saw that Yi Xian just now, I knew that he wasn't simple. He was able to make the tower recognize him as its master, and he could even subdue the law of the tower. This person is unfathomable. However, I don't regret releasing the Blood Emperor's seal, because to our Xiahou family, this is also an opportunity. Xiahou Jin nodded slightly. I know. Xiahou Wu said, the World Prison Tower has reappeared in the 5-dimensional universe. This means that the Prophet may reappear in the world. The Prophet. Hearing this, Xiahou Jin's expression became solemn. Although she wasn't from the same era as the Prophet, she had heard of the legends of the Prophet. In the past, the Prophet was in the 5-dimensional universe. At that time, there was order and justice in the 5-dimensional universe, but now, everything was based on strength. Whoever's fist was bigger was the one who made the right. Xiahou Jin shook her head, then said, Father, take care. After saying this, she turned and left. She knew that she was a trump card left by the Xiahou family. If the Xiahou family won, it would naturally be good. But if the Xiahou family lost, then she was the hope for the Xiahou family to make a comeback. Seeing Xiahou Jin disappear at the end of the road, Xiahou Wu also turned and left. On the other side, after Yi Xian left the Xiahou family, he found a place to hide, then took out the orange-colored talisman. Miss Lian Xian, what type of talisman is this? Lian Xian said, a strength talisman, try it. Yi Xian was somewhat puzzled. How do I activate it? Lian Xian said, it's very simple. Enter it with your divine sense and control the talisman. Then activate it, you can borrow the power of the talisman. Hearing this, Yi Xian did as he was told. Very quickly, the strength talisman in his hand suddenly turned into a ray of light and entered his arm. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the clothes on Yi Xian's arm were directly turned to ash. Yi Xian suddenly clenched his fist. At this moment, he felt that his arm contained boundless power. This power was so strong that it had already surpassed the strength of his physical body. This was the first time that Yi Xian had seen the power of this talisman, and he had to admit that it was truly powerful. At this moment, he felt that he could kill a Fate Breaker expert with a single punch. Invincible confidence. Lian Xian suddenly said, this talisman is only a low-grade orange talisman. If it was a high-grade orange talisman or a top-grade orange talisman, then it would be even more terrifying. Yi Xian nodded. It's indeed powerful. However, it's still an external object in the end. It's not my own strength, so I can't rely too much on it. Lian Xian smiled. It's good that you think that way. Yi Xian put the talisman away, and then he looked at the horizon and said softly, it's time to go see that elderly from Myriad Dimension Academy. After saying that, he disappeared. Because of the crystal ball that Yi Xian had placed in the city, he wasn't the only one looking for Li Jinwu. Many other powers were also looking for Li Jinwu. Now, everyone knew that the World Prison Pagoda was in Li Jinwu's hands. Moreover, Li Jinwu hadn't returned to the Worldwide Academy, but had instead escaped with the treasure. Simply put, whoever found Li Jinwu, the treasure would belong to that person. Because of the World Prison Pagoda, Yi Xian was able to easily find Li Jinwu. At this moment, Li Jinwu was hiding in a cave. His aura was completely concealed, and he had concealed himself extremely well. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had entered the realm of emptiness. Therefore, even though he was very close to Li Jinwu couldn't discover him. Inside the cave, Li Jinwu held the World Prison Pagoda in his hands. He seemed to have gone mad, and his eyes were filled with undisguised excitement. The treasure of the fifth dimension. The treasure of the prophet. Li Jinwu held the World Prison Pagoda. I must control this pagoda. As he spoke, he pointed with his finger and a drop of blood essence entered the World Prison Pagoda. The World Prison Pagoda slightly trembled, as if in response. Seeing this, Li Jinwu became excited. At this moment, a powerful aura assaulted him from outside the cave. Yi Xian looked outside the cave. He was somewhat astonished. He hadn't expected that someone would be able to find Li Jinwu so quickly. He had wanted to warn the powers of the fifth dimension. Inside the cave, Li Jinwu immediately put away the World Prison Pagoda and looked outside the cave. At this moment, the cave door in front of him exploded. No, it should be said that the place he was hiding in had exploded. Li Jinwu looked in front of him. Not far away from him stood a black-clothed man. The black-clothed man's entire body was shrouded in black, and there was a mysterious power enveloping his body. It was impossible to see his true appearance. Li Jinwu stared at the black-clothed man. Your Excellency, could it be that you don't know that I'm an elder of the Worldwide Academy? In the distance, the black-clothed man sneered. Worldwide Academy? Li Jinwu, you secretly took the treasure of the Worldwide Academy and fled. You actually dare to call yourself an elder of the Worldwide Academy? You really have a lot of face. Hearing this, Li Jinwu frowned. How did you know? The black-clothed man laughed. How did I know? Right now, everyone in the world knows. Li Jinwu, the old man will give you a chance. Hand over the pagoda and the old man will spare your life. Otherwise. At this moment, Li Jinwu suddenly turned around and fled. He didn't choose to attack, because if he did, he might attract even more experts. Right now, he only had one choice, and that was to flee. However, he hadn't even taken a few steps when another old man appeared in front of him. Li Jinwu was just about to speak when the old man suddenly spread out his right hand and pressed it down lightly. Bang! The space where Li Jinwu was directly collapsed. As for Li Jinwu, his soul was completely destroyed. He had been instantly killed. In the darkness, Yi Xian was silent. He knew that a true big shot had appeared. Chapter 866. At this moment, Yi Xian knew that he had underestimated the position of the treasure in the hearts of the people of the fifth dimension. This time, a super big shot had appeared. Yi Xian looked at the old man in the distance. The old man was wearing a plain robe. From his appearance, it was impossible to tell that he was a super expert. The old man opened his palm and the world prison pagoda landed in his hand. He looked at the pagoda and said softly, "How can a weak person possess such a divine object?" As he said this, he looked at the black-clothed man. The latter did not say anything and quietly retreated. In the dark, Yi Xian said softly in his heart, "Miss Lian Xian, what realm is this person?" Lian Xian said softly, "This person was able to destroy Li Jinwu's soul with a wave of his hand. Not only did he destroy his soul, he even erased his life imprint. To be able to do this, he is at least in the life and death realm." Life and death realm. Yi Xian was silent. He knew that there would be even more powerful people coming out. As expected, just as the black-clothed man disappeared, a powerful aura suddenly attacked from the horizon. The old man looked at the horizon and said softly, "Yuan Mutsang." Just as he said this, a white-clothed old man suddenly appeared in front of him. This person was Myriad Dimension Academy's teacher, Yuan Mutsang. This person could be said to be the third in command of Myriad Dimension Academy, because he was in charge of the entire Wuyuan. Myriad Dimension Academy was divided into civil and military, and he was the head of Wuyuan. However, this old man did not have a hint of fear in his eyes. Yuan Mutsang looked at the old man in front of him. "My Myriad Dimension Academy and Qi family have never become enemies." The old man smiled. "We have never thought of becoming enemies with Myriad Dimension Academy." Yuan Mutsang looked at the old man. "Then please return my Myriad Dimension Academy's treasure." The old man laughed. "Yuan Mutsang, you said that this world prison pagoda belongs to your Myriad Dimension Academy?" Yuan Mutsang asked in reply, "Is it not?" The old man smiled. "As far as I know, this object belongs to the Prophet, not your Myriad Dimension Academy. Now that the Prophet has disappeared, this object should be ownerless. What makes you say that it belongs to your Myriad Dimension Academy?" Yuan Mutsang looked at the old man and did not speak. The old man continued, "If the Prophet is still here, my Qi clan will definitely offer this item to you. If it's someone else, then my Qi family would be embarrassed." The Qi family. In the fifth dimension, there were some extremely powerful aristocratic families. The Qi family was one of them. Moreover, the Qi family was not an ordinary family. That was because there was a rune master in the Qi clan. Moreover, he was a powerful rune master, the kind that could refine orange talismans. This kind of person had too much influence. Of course, if that was all, the Myriad Dimension Academy wouldn't need to be afraid. More importantly, this rune master of the Qi clan was an elder of Fu Wenzong. Fu Wenzong. The Myriad Dimension Academy did not dare to underestimate such a power. If it was when the Prophet was still here, the Myriad Dimension Academy would not be afraid of this Fu Wenzong. That was because the founder of Fu Wenzong had knelt in front of the Myriad Dimension Academy's cliff for 10 days and 10 nights in order to learn the rune Tao of the Prophet. Strictly speaking, the founder of Fu Wenzong was the disciple of the Prophet. Although the Prophet did not acknowledge him, the founder of Fu Wenzong had always called himself the prophet's disciple. Currently, the relationship between the Myriad Dimension Academy and Fu Wenzong was not very good. Yuan Mutsang weighed his options and did not directly attack. He said softly, "Qi Wu, with your intelligence, you should know that someone is deliberately stirring up trouble in the dark." Qi Wu nodded, "I know. However, my Qi clan does not care, because the person behind this is targeting your worldwide academy." Yuan Mutsang looked at Qi Wu, "If you take this object, it won't just be targeting my Myriad Dimension Academy." Qi Wu smiled, "This object is worth my Qi clan risking our lives for." Yuan Mutsang nodded, "Then I won't say any more." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged out. Qi Wu grinned, "It just so happens that I want to experience the strength of the master of Wu Yuan as well." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged out as well. The battle began. In the shadows, Yi Xian watched silently. It had to be said that these two people were very powerful. Moreover, the power of this world was indeed very different from that of the four-dimensional universe. For example, the use of space here was not something that the experts of the four-dimensional universe could compare with. Moreover, it was worth mentioning that the space in the five-dimensional universe was extremely firm. If they were below, then this space would have probably collapsed a long time ago. However, at this moment, the strength of these two people had actually not destroyed the space here. The battle between the two of them was growing more and more intense, and Yi Xian had already retreated to the side. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly raised his head, and a palm-sized orange talisman had suddenly appeared in the sky. Along with the appearance of this orange talisman, a bolt of lightning shot down from the talisman at an extremely swift speed, and it arrived above Yuan Mutsang in the blink of an eye. Yuan Mutsang's expression changed slightly, and he clenched his right hand into a fist before smashing it upwards. Bang! The glow of lightning exploded while he retreated repeatedly. However, right at this moment, numerous bolts of lightning descended incessantly from the talisman in the sky. Bang! 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 Yuan Mutsang retreated madly. On the other side, Yi Xian was slightly shocked. The might of this orange talisman is actually so great? Lian Xian said, "It's at least a high-grade orange talisman. A top-grade orange talisman would be even more powerful. However, the truly formidable thing is actually the seven-colored talisman." Yi Xian's brows knit together slightly. "A seven-colored talisman? Isn't it a black talisman?" Lian Xian said, "It's a black talisman now because only Master was able to draw a seven-colored talisman all those years ago. When Fu Wenzong created the talisman, he knelt before Master's cliff for 10 days and 10 nights in order to obtain a seven-colored talisman to study. Actually, that person wasn't bad, and Master was quite satisfied with him. However, he still made him kneel for 10 days and 10 nights. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. Why? Lian Xian said softly, "Because Master said that the easier it is to obtain something, the less one would cherish it." Yi Xian was silent. He had to admit that the prophet's words were reasonable. Some things, the easier it was to obtain, the less one would cherish it. Lian Xian said again, "After Master, only Fu Wenzong could barely draw a seven-colored talisman. However, I'm afraid that he is no longer in this world. I think that in this fifth dimension, there shouldn't be anyone who can draw a seven-colored talisman." Yi Xian said, "Miss Lian Xian, did Senior Prophet leave any treasures in this world?" Lian Xian said, "The Universal Library is the best treasure that Master left behind. However, you can't go there because the Universal Library is inside the Universal Academy. If you go there, you'll be walking into a trap." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. At this time, Lian Xian said, "There's another place. At that time, you can go and try your luck." Yi Xian was about to speak, but at this time, an orange talisman suddenly appeared in the distant sky. From this talisman, fire dragons swooped down. Below, Yuan Mutsang's expression changed greatly. However, he suddenly opened his palm, and a purple talisman appeared in his hand. In the next moment, a huge golden square shield suddenly appeared above his head, and at this moment, the fire dragons and lightning directly collided with the golden square shield. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The golden square shield began to tremble violently. Soon, many cracks appeared on the golden square shield. Obviously, it couldn't hold on much longer. Yi Xian looked up. In the sky, there stood an old man. On the left side of the old man's chest, there was a small, talisman character. Obviously, this was Fu Wenzong's. At this time, the golden square shield suddenly exploded, and a fire dragon directly collided with Yuan Mutsang's body. Boom! Yuan Mutsang was directly sent flying. In the sky, the old man looked down at Qi Wu. Let's go. Qi Wu said solemnly, Uncle, since we have already shed all pretense of cordiality with the Myriad Dimension Academy, why not directly kill them? The old man said coldly, Fool. Take that thing and leave. Don't return to the Qi clan, go to Fu Wenzong. Qi Wu was somewhat puzzled. Why? The old man looked coldly at Qi Wu. Are you trying to kill the Qi clan? This thing is not something the Qi clan can possess. Take it to Fu Wenzong. Qi Wu hesitated for a moment, then nodded, all right. With that, he turned and disappeared at the end of the horizon. Not far away, Yuan Mutsang looked at the old man in the sky. Qi Fu, it seems that your Qi clan wants to become enemies with my worldwide academy. With that, he smiled sinisterly. Your Qi clan really wants to disappear from this world. Qi Fu was expressionless. Do you think that this old man is afraid? If your worldwide academy wants it, then come to Fu Wenzong. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Fu Wenzong. Yuan Mutsang's expression was unsightly to the extreme. He seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, he glanced at the surroundings. Yi Xian, I know you're hiding in the shadows. Let the old man tell you, you. Suddenly, a ray of light flew out from the space in front of Yuan Mutsang. The latter's expression changed drastically, and he was just about to move when a mysterious force suddenly appeared around him. Moreover, a blood-red prisoner character had appeared above him as well, and then two powerful forces suppressed him. It was exactly this suppression that allowed Yi Xian's sword to pierce through his throat. Hiss! Yuan Mutsang's head flew into the air, but his soul wasn't annihilated. However, a sword appeared above him as soon as his soul appeared, and then his soul was absorbed by the sword in the next moment. The soul-quelling sword. After it absorbed Yuan Mutsang's soul, the soul-quelling sword trembled violently, and a powerful force instantly swept towards the surroundings. Yi Xian gazed at the soul-quelling sword that stood before him. It's growing stronger and stronger. The soul-quelling sword was different from the executing heaven's sword because it could be said to have been slowly raised by him. Now, the soul-quelling sword's strength could be said to be on par with the executing heaven's sword. Of course, that was only in terms of the soul. If it was in terms of physical strength, then the executing heaven's sword was still the strongest. Yi Xian gestured with his right hand, and one of Yuan Mutsang's spatial rings instantly flew into his grasp. He gazed silently at the spot where Yuan Mutsang had vanished. Meanwhile, Lian Xian suddenly said, I never expected that you would be able to kill him. Even though he was injured, but, Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Lian Xian, you're wrong. I didn't kill him, it was Qi Fu. Lian Xian fell silent for a moment before she spoke softly, you're too sly. Chapter 867. Before this, Qi Fu actually had the ability to kill Yuan Mutsang. However, Qi Fu did not kill him. Yi Xian knew that Yuan Mutsang did not want to go too far. After all, if Yuan Mutsang was killed, it meant that there would be no room for reconciliation between the Qi family and the Worldwide Academy. Therefore, Qi Fu did not choose to kill Yuan Mutsang. There were two reasons why Yi Xian took action. First, the Myriad Dimensions Academy was his enemy. Second, he wanted to make the fifth dimension even more chaotic. If it was not chaotic, these people might join hands to deal with him. What he wanted to do now was to make these forces kill each other. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and looked at the storage ring in his hand. Inside the storage ring was a purple talisman. It was the defensive purple talisman from before. In addition, there were also some fist-sized crystals. Lien Xian suddenly said, "Crystals. These crystals are not very useful to you because your spring of life is more than 10 times better than these." Yi Xian nodded, "Indeed." As he spoke, he looked at the purple talisman in his hand. It was a defensive purple talisman. Although it was not bad, he did not like it anymore. Right now, he was only interested in the orange talisman. Yi Xian put away the talisman, turned around, and disappeared. Myriad Dimensions Academy. The moment Yuan Mutsang died, Chen Tian, who was sitting and reading in the library, suddenly stopped. Chen Tian was silent for a moment, then softly said, "Is he dead?" At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared beside him. The old man nodded. "It is confirmed that he has died." Chen Tian said, "Who did it?" The old man said, "It might be Qi family's Qi Fu." Chen Tian frowned, "Then the rune master?" The old man nodded, "It might be him. We can confirm that the treasure has fallen into the hands of Qi family, and Qi family has already taken it to Fu Wenzong. Fu Wenzong. Chen Tian chuckled, "Interesting. Someone wants our Myriad Dimension Academy to fight to the death with Fu Wenzong." The old man said in a deep voice, "Mannerhead, this isn't a conspiracy, it's an open conspiracy. Now that the treasure has fallen into Fu Wenzong's hands, if we don't get it back, once they take control of the tower, we..." Hearing this, Chen Tian fell silent. The old man continued, "Think about it in the worst-case scenario. Although the Myriad Dimension Book House is in our hands, if they ally with other forces, our situation will become extremely terrible." Chen Tian slowly closed his eyes. "Look for Yi Xian." The old man looked at Chen Tian. Chen Tian said softly, "Suyi, you have to understand that if you do not deal with this person, there will be endless trouble. He had to find this person first. As for the World Prison Pagoda, as long as the Myriad Dimensional Book House is in our hands, even if they have the key, they will still have to beg us. Our top priority right now is to find Yi Xian. Only by ending him can we get rid of the root of the problem. Otherwise, even if we get rid of Fu Wenzong, there will still be another sect." Suyi said in a deep voice, "But how do we find him? This person is extremely good at hiding. If he doesn't show himself, we won't be able to do anything to him." Chen Tian chuckled, "Why did he come to the 5th dimension?" "Because he wants to bring the battle to the 5th dimension and doesn't want to implicate the 4th dimension. So, there is only one way to get him to show himself, and that is to target the 4th dimension. As long as we target the 4th dimension, he will definitely show himself." Hearing this, the old man nodded. "I understand." After saying this, he seemed to have thought of something and said, "The 4th dimension is currently sealed. Yin Yang realm experts can't go down, and those below Yin Yang realm are probably not Yi Xian's match." Chen Tian pointed with his finger and a mirror appeared in front of the old man. Seeing this mirror, Su Ye's expression became solemn. Is there a need to use such a godly item to deal with him?" Universal Dimensional Mirror. This was one of the Universal Dimensional Academy's treasures and a godly item left behind by the Prophet. It could be said that it was only inferior to the World Prison Pagoda in Yi Xian's hands. Chen Tian said softly, "Don't look down on him. Don't be careless." Suyi nodded, "I understand." After saying this, he turned and left. About 2 hours later, a group of experts from the Universal Dimensional Academy arrived at the place where the 4th dimension was sealed. However, they were not the top experts of the Universal Dimensional Academy. Because of this seal, the true experts of the Universal Dimensional Academy couldn't go down. The one leading them was Su Yi. Su Yi looked down and said softly, "Lin Xiu, remember, don't look down on this person. This person's strength is above yours. If you meet him, use that treasure immediately. Don't be careless, understand?" Lin Xiu said solemnly, "Dean, are we inferior to this Yi Xian?" Su Yi shook his head, "It's not that we are inferior to him, but this person is very cunning. To prevent any accidents, if you meet him, use that treasure immediately. Don't give him a chance. Lin Xiao nodded, I understand. Siyi said, also, don't look down on the people below. Lin Xiao bowed slightly, this student understands. This time, I will definitely complete the mission in the fourth dimension. Siyi nodded, the reason why I chose you this time is because you are mature and steady. Don't let the academy master down. Lin Xiao bowed again, I definitely won't let the academy master and dean down. Siyi nodded slightly, go. Lin Xiao led the group and left. In the field, Siyi looked down with a trace of worry in his eyes. Yi Xian. He had also investigated Yi Xian. This guy's strength might not be particularly terrifying, but he really knew how to play dirty tricks. Just like this time, several forces and the worldwide academy had been harmed by Yi Xian, especially Demonic City, which had almost been completely wiped out. And the worldwide academy had also lost a leader of Wuyuan. Moreover, they had now become enemies with Fu Wenzong. It was all done by this youth called Yi Xian. Thinking of this, Siyi became even more worried. Could this Lin Xiao and the others really fight against this Yi Xian? Siyi looked down and became even more worried. On the other side, Yi Xian, who originally wanted to go to Fu Wenzong, suddenly stopped because he heard the news that the Worldwide Academy had sent many powerhouses to the fourth dimension. Needless to say, this news was released by the Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian knew that the Worldwide Academy wanted to force him back. And he had no choice but to go back. Fortunately, some of the super powerhouses in the fifth dimension were still unable to enter the fourth dimension. Yi Xian did not think too much and turned to leave. Return to the fourth dimension. Dual Realm Sky. After Lin Xiao and the others came down from the fifth dimension, they were all curiously looking at the surrounding world. At this moment, a man beside Lin Xiao suddenly said, Senior Lin Xiao, the space of this fourth dimension is not ordinary. Moreover, the spirit qi here is extremely impurities, not pure at all. Lin Xiao glanced around and nodded. Indeed can't compare to the fifth dimension. However, don't look down on the people here. The man nodded. Naturally not. If that Yi Xian was easy to deal with, the academy venerates and the others would not be so cautious. Lin Xiao nodded slightly. To force this Yi Xian to appear, there is only one way, and that is to go to the Black-Yellow Great World's northern region. However, according to the information we obtained, this northern region, besides Yi Xian, there are still a few powerhouses, such as that in Lanxiu, that Shao Qi, and a woman called Imo Xia and Lian Wanli. These four people's strength is not weak at all. If you encounter them, you must not be careless. Of course, we will not be weaker than them. Just don't underestimate the enemy. The man nodded. Naturally not. Lin Xiao glanced at the distant horizon and said softly, then let's go. With that said, he turned into a white light and disappeared at the end of the horizon. And behind him, everyone also hurriedly followed. A total of 9 people. Not long after, the 9 of them entered the Black-Yellow Great World's territory and headed straight for the northern region. In a short while, the 9 of them arrived at the northern region's Tianjiang city. In the sky above the city, Lin Xiao looked down. At this moment, several powerful auras suddenly rushed into the sky from below. Very quickly, Lan Xiao and the others appeared in front of Lin Xiao and the others. Not only Lan Xiao and the other 2, but Emperor Shi, Old Man Bamboo Forest, Pavilion Elder Chen, and the others were also there. Lin Xiao glanced at Lan Xiao and the others. Is Yi Xian here? Shao Qi walked out. You are looking for him? Lin Xiao nodded. Shao Qi said, he is not here. Lin Xiao nodded slightly. It's fine. After killing you, he will appear. Shao Qi smiled slightly. Are the people of the fifth dimension all so arrogant? Lin Xiao walked towards Shao Qi. It's not that we are arrogant, but that we have the strength. If you don't believe me, I will prove it to you now. As his voice fell, he suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, a wisp of spear light suddenly appeared in front of Xiaoqi. Xiaoqi's eyes narrowed slightly. She suddenly drew her sword and slashed. Bang! Along with an explosion, both of them retreated explosively at the same time. During the process of retreating, Xiaoqi suddenly spread open her right hand, and the sword in her hand transformed into a flying sword that slashed out at an extremely swift speed. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Lin Xiu. Meanwhile, Lin Xiu suddenly spread open his right hand, and a violet talisman appeared in his palm. In the next moment, he suddenly clenched his fist. Cage. As soon as his voice resounded, the space in front of him directly formed a spatial cage, and Xiaoqi's sword was directly trapped by this spatial cage. In the distance, Xiaoqi suddenly pressed her palms together, and she took a step forward. Break. As soon as her voice resounded, a strand of light suddenly erupted from the tip of the sword within the spatial cage. In the next moment, the sword broke out of the cage and slashed straight at Lin Xiu. There was a trace of surprise in Lin Xiu's eyes. He hadn't expected that the sword of the little girl before him would actually be able to slash apart his violet talisman. Lin Xiu's expression was calm. When the sword arrived above his head, he suddenly spread open his hands, and a spear flew out from his hands like a bolt of lightning. Bang! An explosion resounded like a thunderclap above Lin Xiu's head. Xiaoqi's sword was blocked, and at this moment, Xiaoqi suddenly appeared in front of Lin Xiu. The corners of Lin Xiu's mouth curled up slightly, and a talisman floated out from the center of his forehead. An orange talisman. As soon as the talisman appeared, a ball of flames instantly swept out at an extremely swift speed. Xiaoqi frowned slightly, and then she slashed with her sword, causing an expanse of light to surge out. However, the light vanished as soon as it came into contact with the ball of flames, and Xiaoqi herself was instantly enveloped by the ball of flames. Everyone here was shocked when they witnessed this scene. Xiaoqi's eyes opened wide within the ball of flames, and a scene suddenly appeared in her mind. That expanse of the starry sky, that woman in a plain dress. P.S. I recently noticed that there are many people selling movies in the book review section. Why am I being targeted? Chapter 868. Just as Lanxiu and the others arrived in front of Xiaoqi, Xiaoqi suddenly roared furiously from within the ball of flames. No, I am me. As soon as he finished speaking, a wave of sword light erupted from the ball of flames. Boom! The ball of flames was directly blasted away by this expanse of sword light. In the next moment, a sword light instantly slashed towards Lin Xiu. Lin Xiu was alarmed. He raised his spear to block. Boom! Lin Xiu was directly sent flying. Everyone looked towards where Seven was. Seven held her sword and walked towards Lin Xiu. In her eyes, 2 streaks of sword light flashed like lightning. He broke through. And Lanxiu and Lian Wanli heaved a sigh of relief. They hadn't expected that Xiaoqi would actually break through at this moment. It had to be said that among the younger generation of the four-dimensional universe, Xiaoqi and Yi Xian were indeed the most monstrous swordsmen. In the distance, Lin Xiu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He raised his head and looked at Xiaoqi with an incomparably solemn gaze. Originally, he thought that only Yi Xian was his opponent in the four-dimensional universe, but at this moment, he realized that the strength of the little girl in front of him was actually so strong. It was strong enough to resist his orange talisman. How monstrous! Lin Xiu looked at Seven. He held the spear in his hand tightly, and at that moment, the orange talisman turned into a flame and entered his spear. Boom! That long spear directly turned into a flaming spear, and its entire body was covered in flames. The body of the spear seemed to be forged from magma, and it emitted an extremely powerful and frightening heat. In the distance, Seven stared at Lin Xiu. The sword in her right hand started to tremble violently. Lin Xiu slowly closed his eyes. When Xiaoqi was 5 feet away from him, he suddenly opened his eyes. Ah! After a furious roar, the spear in his hand suddenly pierced through the air. Wherever the spear passed, the space was directly burned into nothingness. He pointed his gun at little Seven. In the distance, Seven suddenly stopped and said, "My heart is my sword, slash." Chi. In front of everyone's eyes, a sword light suddenly slashed the long spear. Boom! The spear shook violently, and countless flames burst out. The sword light and the fire light confronted each other, but it did not last long. Ka-cha! The sound of something breaking resounded abruptly, and then a ray of light passed through the flames and slashed straight at Lin Xiu. Lin Xiu's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw the sword light slashing over. Another orange talisman appeared between his brows, and then an orange shield suddenly appeared in front of him. The sword arrived. Boom! The giant orange shield trembled violently, and Lin Xiu instantly retreated. Not far away, Seven's right hand suddenly opened up and then she lightly slashed at Lin Xiu. Slash! When his voice faded, countless flying swords suddenly slashed towards him from all around Lin Xiu. A dense swarm of flying swords. The corners of Lin Xiu's mouth curled into a sinister smile. He suddenly grabbed the defensive orange talisman in his hand. Defend! As soon as he finished speaking, an orange barrier of light enveloped him. Moreover, the space around him started to condense layer by layer towards him. Boom, 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 boom. A series of explosions rang out, and gradually, tiny cracks began to appear on the orange light barrier. The expressions of the students from Myriad Dimension Academy instantly sank when they witnessed this scene. Shao Qi's strength had far exceeded their expectations. He didn't rely on any talismans, yet he possessed such formidable strength alone. Even in the fifth dimension, he was an absolute top genius. Countless strands of sword qi shot towards Lin Xiu, and they formed a dense and boundless expanse of sword qi. On the other hand, more and more cracks appeared on the orange light barrier around Lin Xiu. Lin Xiu's expression was extremely gloomy. Because he knew that if this continued, then he would be exhausted to death by the swordsman. But now, he had no other choice. So long as he withdrew his shield, then he would be pierced through by a myriad of swords. When he thought up to here, Lin Xiu's heart calmed down. The more hopeless the situation was, the calmer one had to be. Otherwise, one would die even faster. Use that precious treasure? Lin Xiu shook his head. He couldn't use that precious treasure because it was left for Yi Xian. Right at this moment, Seven suddenly vanished from afar. When she appeared once more, she was already in front of him, and then she stabbed her sword against the orange light barrier. Bang! The orange light barrier shook violently, and then a gap was directly torn open. Seven slashed down once more. Bang! The entire orange light barrier exploded, and Lin Xiu who was within the barrier retreated explosively. Seven stomped her right foot lightly, and she transformed into a streak of sword light that shot out explosively. Hiss! A wisp of sword light tore through the battlefield. In the distance, Lin Xiu's expression changed drastically. He knew that he couldn't receive this sword strike at all. Without any other choice, Lin Xiu said, "Attack." As soon as his voice faded, the 8 people behind him suddenly attacked. Rumble. Shao Qi's sword light was shattered. Seven glanced at Lin Xiu and the others and didn't attack again. Lin Xiu looked at Seven, and he wiped off the blood at the corner of his mouth. "Who are you?" Seven didn't answer. She retreated to the side and said softly, "I want to absorb it." After she finished speaking, she sat cross-legged in the void, and then her eyes slowly closed. Lian Wanli suddenly poked at Xiu's shoulder lightly. Seven. Seven looked at Lian Wanli, and Lian Wanli blinked. "Are you still Seven?" Seven rolled her eyes and then continued to comprehend. Seeing this scene, Lian Wanli instantly started laughing. She was still the original Seven. In the distance, Lin Xiu took a deep look at Seven. In the information given to him by the dean, Yi Xian was the one he had to fear the most. However, he hadn't expected that the strength of this little girl in front of him would actually be so formidable. Moreover, this little girl didn't rely on the power of any talismans. She didn't use any divine abilities. This was extremely terrifying. At this moment, Enlancio looked at Lin Xiu. Do you still want to fight? Beside Lin Xiu, a man was about to attack, but Lin Xiu shook his head. These people should be the top figures of the younger generation in this four-dimensional universe. You're not a match for them. That man said in a low voice, I have 2 violet talismans. Lin Xiu said softly, they don't rely on talismans here. At this moment, he realized something. Perhaps it was because they were poor, but the people of this world basically didn't have talismans. However, this wasn't a completely bad thing. People who didn't rely on talismans to grow up would have even more terrifying combat strength. This was the disadvantage of the people of the four-dimensional universe, but it was also their advantage. Lin Xiu retracted his thoughts and looked around. Where's Yi Xian? He still had to leave his greatest trump card for Yi Xian. And Lanxiu looked at Lin Xiu and was about to speak when a voice suddenly sounded out in his mind. And Lanxiu was slightly startled. After a moment, she looked at Lin Xiu. He's on his way back. After a moment of silence, Lin Xiu led everyone and left. Lian Wanli suddenly said, should we stay? And Lanxiu shook his head. Lian Wanli nodded, and then she retreated to Seven's side. And Lanxiu glanced at Lin Xiu and the others in the distance and didn't say anything. In the distance, Lin Xiu and the others directly left the northern region. Lin Xiu sat cross-legged on the ground amidst the clouds. In front of his chest, there was a violet talisman. This talisman was currently healing his injuries. At this moment, the expressions of this group of Myriad Dimension Academy students were incomparably solemn. Lin Xiu had been defeated. Moreover, he hadn't lost to Yi Xian, but a seemingly very small little girl. According to rumor, Yi Xian was even more formidable than that little girl. Since that little girl was so strong, then how strong was Yi Xian? At this moment, the hearts of everyone felt heavy. At this moment, Lin Xiu was extremely depressed in his heart. He'd originally intended to head to the northern region and use Yi Xian's friends to force Yi Xian to make an appearance. However, he'd never imagined that Yi Xian's friends would actually be so strong. Not only had he been unable to force Yi Xian to make an appearance, he'd been defeated instead, and it affected their morale. What a huge loss. Lin Xiu shook his head and concentrated on healing his injuries. Around an hour later, Lin Xiu suddenly stood up. He glanced at the surroundings and said that Yi Xian might have returned. Everyone, be careful. Everyone instantly became vigilant when they heard this. Right at this moment, the head of a man behind Lin Xiu flew into the air. Everyone in the surroundings was greatly shocked when they saw this scene. Lin Xiu suddenly stabbed his spear towards the right, and space exploded apart where the tip of his spear descended. However, there was nothing there. The surroundings were silent to the point a falling needle could be heard. Lin Xiu's expression was icy cold as he glanced coldly at the surroundings. Yi Xian, do you dare to come out? Right at this moment, the head of another student flew into the air. Hiss. Blood sprayed out like a fountain. However, there was still no sign of the person who attacked. Everyone was astounded to the extreme. Lin Xiu suddenly roared furiously. Yi Xian, come out if you have the ability, hiss. Another head flew into the air behind him. Lin Xiu immediately turned around. Return. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone turned around and vanished at the ends of the starry sky. Return to the 5th dimension. Lin Xiu knew that if Yi Xian didn't come out and continued carrying out assassinations like this, then he would be utterly helpless against Yi Xian. Now, he only had a single path, and it was to return to the 5th dimension. As for the mission, he didn't think too much about it because staying alive was more important. In next to no time, everyone arrived at the dual world sky. However, when they arrived at the dual world sky, only 4 people remained. Moreover, during this entire process, they didn't see Yi Xian's people at all. In next to no time, when they arrived before the seal, another 2 bloody heads flew into the air. Only 2 people remained. At this moment, Lin Xiu suddenly stopped. Because he sensed an aura locking onto him. Lin Xiu looked at the 2 people beside him. You 2 leave. However, the 2 of them shook their heads. Lin Xiu shouted angrily, leave quickly. The 2 of them hesitated for a moment and were just about to leave when a sword directly slashed through the throat of one of them. Hiss. That man's head flew into the air. The other person was greatly alarmed and immediately turned around to flee. However, when he arrived before the seal, a sword directly pierced through his chest. Seeing this, Lin Xiu slowly closed his eyes. Meanwhile, a man appeared in front of Lin Xiu. The man wore a cloud-colored robe and held a sword in his hand. The arrival was precisely Yi Xian. Lin Xiu looked at Yi Xian and mocked, are you a swordsman or an assassin? Yi Xian chuckled lightly and was just about to speak when Lin Xiu suddenly shouted angrily, Universal Dimensional Mirror. When his voice fell, a mirror suddenly flew out from his chest. Yi Xian's expression was calm as if he had something to rely on. Chapter 869. Yi Xian didn't choose to kill Lin Xiu directly. This was Lian Xian's intention. As for why, he didn't know. He only knew that Lian Xian wouldn't harm him. And at this moment, when he saw this so-called universal dimensional mirror, Yi Xian's expression turned solemn. Danger. This was what he felt. Right at this moment, Lian Xian's voice suddenly sounded out in Yi Xian's mind, it really is this universal dimensional mirror. Yi Xian asked, Miss Lian Xian recognizes this mirror? Lian Xian said, I recognize it, and I'm very familiar with it. That's because I was the one who completed the sealing power in this mirror. Yi Xian said in a low voice, this mirror is dangerous. Lian Xian said, of course it's dangerous. This thing is only inferior to your Xiao Ta and the Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian looked at the universal dimensional mirror in front of him. What should I do now? Lian Xian said, don't resist. Yi Xian nodded slightly, all right. Opposite Yi Xian, Lin Xiu suddenly said fiercely, Yi Xian, you'll pay a painful price for your arrogance. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly activated the universal dimensional mirror. In an instant, a white light enveloped Yi Xian, but Yi Xian didn't dodge. Soon, the space around Yi Xian started stacking layer by layer. This space slowly formed an extremely strange shape, and he was in this space. No, at this moment, he felt like he was in countless spaces. Simply put, at this moment, he felt like he was being divided into countless pieces by space. It was somewhat absurd, but it was also so real. Yi Xian was shocked in his heart, Miss Lian Xian? At this moment, Lian Xian suddenly appeared by Yi Xian's side. Lian Xian glanced at the surroundings, opened her palm, and said softly, withdraw. As soon as she finished speaking, the space around her started trembling. At this moment, a ball of white light suddenly appeared in front of her. Ah Qian? Lian Xian nodded slightly and said softly, little Wei, long time no see. The ball of white light said excitedly, it really is you. Lian Xian smiled and said, it's me. Let my friend go first. The white light said, all right. As soon as it finished speaking, the space around Yi Xian immediately returned to normal. After returning to normal, Yi Xian took a deep look at the ball of white light. His eyes were filled with fear. At that moment, he really felt the aura of death. The ball of white light suddenly flew in front of Lian Xian. It seemed very intimate. Where's Big Sister? Is Big Sister with you? Lian Xian shook her head. Eldest sister isn't here, but she will be here when the time comes. White light said excitedly, good. At that time, we can reunite again. Lian Xian said softly, little Wei, why did you submit to that Qintian? Did he force you? Little Wei said, no, he said he would help me find you, so I followed him. Lian Xian said solemnly, why don't you follow us now? Little Wei did not hesitate, all right. I'll follow you in the future. Hearing that, by the side, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth raised slightly. This was a tremendous benefit. Lian Xian opened her palm. That streak of white light directly entered her palm, and she disappeared instead. Right now, Xiao Ling, Lian Xian, and the rest were all inside the space that Lian Xian created. Because the World Prison Pagoda was no longer on him. Fortunately, this did not have any effect. The space in the field returned to normal. Yi Xian appeared in front of Lin Xiu. When she saw Yi Xian, Lin Xiu's complexion instantly turned pale. You? How is this possible? Yi Xian looked at Lin Xiu and did not speak. He directly vanished on the spot. Far away, that Lin Xiu's expression changed drastically, and he suddenly blocked with his spear horizontally. Swish! A slicing sound suddenly sounded out. That long spear in Lin Xiu's hand directly split into two. Immediately following that, a wisp of sword light directly pressed against the space between Lin Xiu's brows. Lin Xiu's body stiffened. And at this moment, an angry shout suddenly sounded from above the seal. Yi Xian! Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the Myriad Dimension Academy's dean behind the seal. The next moment, he held his sword and slashed. Swish! Lin Xiu's head directly flew off. Yi Xian held his sword and lightly patted it. Bang! That head directly flew in front of the dean behind the seal. Yi Xian looked at the dean with an ice-cold expression. I will graciously accept this great gift from the Myriad Dimension Academy. Help me tell Chen Tian that I, Yi Xian, thank him. After saying that, he turned and left. After the seal, the dean's expression was extremely ugly. Yi Xian returned to the Black-Yellow Great World's northern territory. As soon as he returned, Emperor Shi and Elder Bamboo Forest found him. Yi Xian said, Seniors, do you want to ask about the five-dimensional universe? Emperor Shi nodded. Yes, little friend. You have already been to the five-dimensional universe. How is it over there? Yi Xian thought for a moment and then said, the martial arts civilization over there is indeed more advanced than ours. Not only that, there is also the talisman path, the alchemy path, the forging path. I have already seen how formidable the talisman path is. In the future, if you two seniors encounter people who hold purple talismans, you must be careful. If they hold orange talismans, then you must be even more careful. Emperor Shi hesitated for a moment and then said, Can we go now? Yi Xian shook his head. It's best not to. Because behind the seal, there are experts from the Myriad Dimension Academy standing guard. The reason I can go there is because I have a special concealment technique. Emperor Shi's expression dimmed when he heard this. At this moment, Yi Xian said, Seniors, don't be discouraged. When the time comes, everyone can go up. The two of them looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said softly, I am now thinking of a way to solve the crisis in our four-dimensional universe. Once the crisis is resolved, the people here can go to the five-dimensional universe at any time. Emperor Shi nodded slightly. Yes, the most important thing now is to protect the four-dimensional universe. Yi Xian said, Seniors, after I settle the matters here, I will go to the five-dimensional universe again. When the time is right, I will inform everyone. When the time comes, everyone can go to the five-dimensional universe. Emperor Shi hurriedly cupped his fists. On behalf of the experts of the two realm heavens, I will thank little friend Yi Xian first. Yi Xian shook his head. Strictly speaking, I might have implicated you. Emperor Shi shook his head and smiled. You can't say that. If it wasn't for little friend, the five-dimensional restriction would never have been lifted. Moreover, even if it was lifted, without little friend blocking in front of us, all of us would probably die at the hands of the people of the five-dimensional universe. In short, the people of the four-dimensional universe must be united. Only by being united can we all survive. Yi Xian nodded. United. Seniors, during the time I am not in the four-dimensional universe, I will have to trouble you to look after the black-yellow great world. Emperor Shi smiled. No problem. After a while, Emperor Shi and Emperor Shi left. At this time, Shao Qi and Lanxiu and Lian Wanli walked in. Yi Xian opened his palm. In his hand, there were 2 purple talismans and 1 orange talisman. You guys choose. The 3 women glanced at the 3 talismans, but there was no one they chose. Yi Xian was about to speak when Shao Qi suddenly said, although this kind of thing is powerful, it doesn't belong to you. It's better to use it less. And Lanxiu nodded in agreement. Yi Xian looked at Lian Wanli. Lian Wanli grabbed the 3 talismans and glanced at Shao Qi and Lanxiu. This is good stuff. Even if you don't use it, you can definitely sell it for a good price in the future. The 3 of them were speechless. At this time, Shao Qi suddenly said, how about the 5-dimensional universe? Yi Xian smiled. It's just a so-so. Why, do you want to go? Shao Qi shook her head. We will go after you deal with the Worldwide Academy. Otherwise, if they send people over, no one here can fight them. Yi Xian nodded. Indeed, if Shao Qi and the others weren't here, he wouldn't be at ease. As for dealing with the Worldwide Academy, Yi Xian shook his head. He didn't have the ability to deal with the Worldwide Academy now. He could only fight the Worldwide Academy with his wits. He couldn't use brute force. Moreover, this seal would only last for a month at most. After a month, there would be nothing that could stop the 5-dimensional universe. At that time, the situation in the 4-dimensional universe would become even more difficult. Return to the 5-dimensional universe. Yi Xian looked at the 3 women in front of him. I still have to return to the 5-dimensional universe. Shao Qi nodded. Be careful. If the situation isn't good, come back. Understand? Yi Xian smiled. Don't worry. If I can't beat them, I will run. Shao Qi nodded. Be careful. Yi Xian said. You guys too. Wait for my news. When the time comes, come to the 5-dimensional universe too. And Lanxiu nodded. I will wait for your news. Yi Xian didn't say anything else and left the room. In the room, Shao Qi said softly, once the seal disappears, there will be no more obstacles between the 5-dimensional universe and the 4-dimensional universe. Lian Wanli said, you are worried about the 4-dimensional universe? Shao Qi nodded. I am very worried. Because our side is weaker than the other side. Lian Wanli said softly, indeed. Forget it, I won't think so much. I will go wherever I go. I don't want to worry about such things. Shao Qi shook her head. You are the most carefree person in this world. Lian Wanli laughed heartily. Living in this world, one should live a carefree life. Shao Qi looked outside the room and said softly, indeed. However, things usually don't go as you wish. After Yi Xian left the northern region, he returned to the 5-dimensional universe. Now that the prison pagoda had fallen into Fu Wenzong's hands, he had to go to Fu Wenzong. This was because he knew that the Worldwide Academy wouldn't be able to sit still. One had to know that once Fu Wenzong grasped the treasure, the Worldwide Academy would have no chance. Of course, there was another possibility, which was that the Worldwide Academy would target him at all costs. So, he had to rush to Fu Wenzong and think of a way to make the Worldwide Academy and Fu Wenzong fight. Myriad Dimensional Academy, within the learning hall. The dean stood in front of Chen Tian. Chen Tian was reading an ancient book. After a long while, the dean suddenly said, should I head down? Chen Tian was silent. The Academy Venerable said again, I can lower my cultivation level and go down. Chen Tian looked at the dean. At this moment, he thought of something. The woman in the plain dress had said that she would protect the 4-dimensional universe. After a while, Chen Tian smiled. I want to see how she will protect me. As he said this, he looked at the dean. Go down. The dean nodded and turned to leave. About 2 hours later, the dean suppressed his realm and came to the four-dimensional universe. Dual realm sky. After coming to the four-dimensional universe, the dean hesitated for a while before immediately restoring his realm. In an instant, a powerful force shook from his body. In an instant, the starry sky shook violently. At this moment, in the distant starry sky, a woman in a plain dress suddenly stopped. She turned her head and said softly, "Am I too kind? P.S. I'm working hard on the update problem everyone is talking about. You guys know that I'm not young anymore. I can't write every day. I have to find a wife. Tell me, how many people who read my book have gone from being single to married and having children? One more question. Do any readers have a young and beautiful sister that you can introduce to Lao Wan? You guys know that I'm an honest person. You can rest assured." Chapter 870. In the starry sky, the plain-dressed woman turned her head. Her gaze was like a sword that pierced through the galaxy. In the two-realm sky, the dean, who had just recovered his realm, seemed to sense something. His expression changed greatly and he turned his head. The next moment, he clenched his fists. Star River Control. Then, he shouted. In the surrounding starry sky, countless starlights suddenly gathered towards him. Soon, the dean was wrapped up by the starlight. The power of 10,000 stars. At this moment, the dean gathered the power of the starlight in this starry sky. At this moment, a ray of sword light suddenly broke through the air from the distant starry sky. In front of the countless starlight, the ray of sword light seemed so thin and small. However, the ray of sword light easily tore through the starlight. In an instant, countless starlight dimmed. Chi! The ray of sword light directly pierced through the dean's forehead. The dean's body stiffened. His eyes were wide open and filled with disbelief. He had been killed in an instant. If it wasn't for the fact that his vitality was rapidly flowing away, he would have thought that he was dreaming. Killed in an instant. This was absurd. He had cultivated for so many years, but in front of this sword, he couldn't resist at all. It was sad and ridiculous. The dean raised his head and looked at the seal. This person, before he could finish his words, he had completely disappeared. He was directly erased. There was no dean in the world. There was no reincarnation. After the seal, Chen Tian, who was reading in the Myriad Dimensions Academy, suddenly stopped. After a moment of silence, he said softly, "I underestimated you." In the starry sky, the plain-dressed woman withdrew her gaze and looked towards the fifth dimension. A ray of sword light circled her fingertip and she was about to attack. At this moment, she seemed to have thought of something and stopped. She was thinking about a problem. Yi Xian had already gone to the fifth dimension. If she attacked, would she kill him as well? Would he be able to block this sword of his? Thinking of this, she didn't attack in the end. After a moment, the plain-dressed woman continued forward. Beside her, there were invisible lines. These lines crisscrossed and intersected with each other, and she was where they intersected. Karma lines. The further she went, the more these threads appeared. It could be said that she was currently being entangled by countless karma. At that moment, she suddenly stopped. She opened her palm, and a thread appeared in her palm. Through that thread, she saw a scene. That crack, that little boy, that little girl, and in front of him, there were many more such lines, and more of them. A moment later, the woman gently put away the thread and softly said, "This is where I started, but it is not where you started." As she spoke, she looked into the distance. "In this life, I will protect you." In the starry sky, the woman in the plain dress walked forward slowly. More and more karma threads appeared on her body. Dressed in plain clothes, elegant like an immortal, not for immortality, not knowing the road ahead, not asking about the way back, proud of the world. 10,000 Dimensions Academy was not able to hide the fact that the dean was instantly killed. This matter quickly spread throughout the fifth dimension. After this incident, the four-dimensional universe became more mysterious. There was someone in the four-dimensional universe who could instantly kill an Academy venerable. What kind of expert was the Academy master? That was a life and death realm powerhouse. This kind of expert, even in the fifth dimension, could be considered to be at the peak level. However, he was killed by someone from the fourth dimension. This time, many forces began to redefine the strength of the fourth dimension. This world was not as weak as they thought it was. Of course, there were even more people who rejoiced in other people's misfortune, because the Worldwide Academy had lost another super expert. In the past, the Worldwide Academy's reputation in the fifth dimension was extremely high. Green City, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince will be removed and Yi Lang will succeed him. The person who spoke was an old man in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth. The youth had a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? At this moment, a somewhat timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone looked over and saw a little girl standing at the door. The little girl was about 12 or 13 years old. Her two small hands were tightly holding the hem of her skirt. Her face had a trace of sickly paleness. She looked a little weak and there was a trace of timidity in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's biological sister. This time, when she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she rushed over regardless of her illness. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed slightly to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason? The Great Elder coldly looked at Yi Ling, this is a family matter, why are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the Great Elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged, whether or not he is crippled, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away from me. At this time, the new Prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed, he should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder coldly replied, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new Prince Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of prince. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Yi Ling's right cheek instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She only covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, what's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded, you're not bad. After I become the prince, I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He quickly bowed deeply, subordinate will go through fire and water for the prince. I will do anything for you. Yi Lang nodded, drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back. Understood. Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside the hall. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes. His face was dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this moment, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Zhang Mu felt dizzy, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there. He charged at Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man." "How dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian ignored Zhang Mu. Walking up to Yi Ling, seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pung! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the Yi clan elders. Why? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, speaking timidly, "Great elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave." Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the great elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he's crippled or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. "He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder replied coldly, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he's fighting for the clan. This is unfair to him. one of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I'll need 10 guards. From now on, you'll be my guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply. "I'll go through fire and water for the prince, and I'll do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Don't hold back, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something, and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang, and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and he charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped down on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pung! Chapter 871. Auctioning the Prison Pagoda. When he heard that Fu Wenzong wanted to auction the prison pagoda, Yi Xian did not know whether to laugh or cry. Wasn't this a trick that he often played? As if thinking of something, Yi Xian's expression gradually became serious. He had originally wanted to use Fu Wenzong to fight against the Worldwide Academy, but he did not think that the Worldwide Academy would not fall for his trick. Now that the Worldwide Academy was auctioning the prison pagoda, it was equivalent to them withdrawing from it. Furthermore, they could profit from the prison pagoda. Thinking of this, Yi Xian shook his head. His plan was good, but the Worldwide Academy was not stupid. But then again, for such a large sect, how could they be a bunch of idiots? Then there was a problem. Should he take back the prison pagoda or not? After thinking for a while, he decided not to take it back. If he took it back now, the entire fifth dimension would chase after him. If these people could not find him, they would definitely target the fourth dimension. Furthermore, there was no need to take it back. Didn't Fu Wenzong want to auction the prison pagoda? Why not beat him at his own game? As he thought of this, Yi Xian was about to leave, but at this time, his brows suddenly furrowed. The next moment, he directly entered into the realm of emptiness. The moment Yi Xian disappeared, an old man appeared where he was originally. He recognized this old man. It was Xiahou Wu. The other party was looking for him? Yi Xian frowned. At this time, there was a hint of doubt in Xiahou Wu's eyes. Where is he? Saying this, he turned and disappeared. Yi Xian still did not come out. At this time, the Xiahou Wu that had disappeared suddenly reappeared. He swept his gaze around, then disappeared. In the darkness, Yi Xian was silent. Why would Xiahou Wu come to find him? Furthermore, he felt that he had come with ill intentions. When did he offend the Xiahou Wu family? Without thinking too much, Yi Xian turned and left. On this day, Fu Wenzong suddenly became lively. People came one after another. However, Fu Wenzong was very cautious. He was very strict with the people who came, so Yi Xian could only sneak in. It must be said that Fu Wenzong was really huge. Even a small mountain gate occupied an entire mountain range. After entering the mountain gate, one's field of vision suddenly opened up. In front of the mountain range was a plain, and at the end of the line of sight stood a towering mountain. The entire mountain was like a talisman that pierced through the clouds. Mount Fu. It was said that this mountain was naturally formed, without the slightest trace of man-made carvings. Back then, when ancestor Fu Wenzong passed by this place, he took a fancy to this place and established his sect here. On Mount Talisman, there were 18 large halls and 108 small halls. This place was no smaller than a city. More and more people gathered in front of the main hall of Mount Talisman. However, ordinary people were stopped in front of the main hall, while those with status were invited into the Talisman Hall. Yi Xian was hidden in the crowd. He didn't show himself, nor did he dare to show himself. This wasn't an ordinary place. If he was recognized, it would be difficult for him to escape. At this moment, the Worldwide Academy arrived. The person who arrived was Chen Tian. Chen Tian arrived in front of the Talisman Hall and looked around. He knew that Yi Xian was definitely hiding in the dark. However, even with his ability, he couldn't sense Yi Xian. He had already sent people to investigate Yi Xian's concealment technique. Only by finding out the origin of this concealment technique could he think of a way to counter it. Otherwise, Yi Xian would forever be invincible. At this moment, sect leader of Fu Wenzong, Shen Xinghe, suddenly came out to welcome them. He smiled as he walked to Chen Tian and said, "Welcome, Patriarch Chen." Chen Tian said with a smile, "Brother Shen, how have you been?" Shen Xinghe smiled faintly. Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as the crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a young man with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly sounded in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to dismiss Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is the crown prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The great elder looked coldly at Yi Ling. "This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave." Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the great elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. This is truly unfair. Impudent. The great elder suddenly raged, whether he's crippled or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new crown prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. He should be flogged 30 times as a warning. The great elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Ti clan's guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he's fighting for the clan. This is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of crown prince. What are you shouting for?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "This subordinate, Zhang Mu, greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded, "You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I'll need 10 guards. From now on, you'll be my guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply. "This subordinate will go through fire and water for the crown prince. I'll do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded, "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall, do not hold back." Understood. Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something, and he suddenly stopped. Within the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Within the ancestral hall, all the elders were frowning. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He rushed towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pung! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the Yi clan elders. Why? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, and asked timidly, "Great Elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting for? Leave." Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the Great Elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent." The Great Elder suddenly raged. "Whether he's stripped or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. "He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The Great Elder replied coldly, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you shouting for?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry, and only covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I'll need 10 guards. From now on, you'll be my guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply. "I'll go through fire and water for the prince, and I'll do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Don't hold back, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something, and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger, and before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him. asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped down on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me." Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu, and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pang! Chapter 872. The Tao of Runes. Yi Xian began to learn the Tao of Runes from Fu Xiaotian. To Yi Xian's surprise, although they were in the hall, no one noticed them. Not only that, there were people who came but did not seem to notice them. He knew it must be because of Fu Xiaotian. The strength of a person like him could only be described as unpredictable. It was true that his immeasurable sword was ineffective against the person in front of him. After all, even Chen Tian could not notice him. As Fu Xiaotian said, the Tao of Runes was not particularly difficult. At least, it was not that difficult in his opinion. Moreover, with Fu Xiaotian's guidance, his speed of improvement in the Tao of Runes could only be described as godly. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The auction officially began. Yi Xian did not pay attention to the auction. He had fallen in love with the Tao of Runes. Now, he was trying to draw a talisman. Moreover, Fu Xiaotian directly asked him to draw a purple talisman. That was too high a starting point. The Hall of Runes. More and more people were gathered in the hall. However, those who entered the hall were all powerful and influential people. As for those who were weaker and had no status, they were outside the hall. However, they could still see what was going on in the hall. Inside the hall, Shen Xinghe glanced at the crowd and said with a smile, "Thank you, everyone, for attending the auction held by me, Fu Wenzong. The auction is very simple. The highest bidder wins." At that moment, an old man suddenly said, "Sect leader Shen, according to the old man's knowledge, your sect has never lacked money. Here's the question. What is it that your sect is looking for in this auction?" Shen Xinghe smiled faintly. "The secret crystal." Hearing that, everyone's expression changed. The secret crystal. This was a special material that was extremely useful. It could be said that rune masters and blacksmiths loved it the most, especially rune masters. This was because if a rune master wanted to refine a purple talisman or above, he would need this dense crystal. These crystals were extremely difficult to obtain. To obtain them, one could only go to one place. The edge of the void dimension. Every year, a few mysterious crystals would leak out from the void dimension. Although they were not many, they were very few. Moreover, every time a mysterious crystal appeared, there would be a fight over it. It could be said that the most valuable currency in the fifth dimension was these mysterious crystals. With the secret crystals, you can exchange anything, even divine weapons and orange talismans. Now that Fu Wenzong had requested to exchange crystals for the World Prison Pagoda, it could be said that this directly stopped most people, because not many people had crystals. Shen Xinghe continued, "Ladies and gentlemen, let's not waste any more time. Let's begin. The base price is 1,000 secret crystals, and each increment must be no less than 100 secret crystals. The highest bidder wins." Everyone in the hall was silent. Shen Xinghe slowly closed his eyes. He was not in a hurry. It was the others who should be in a hurry. Right at this moment, a nearby black-clothed old man suddenly said, 1,200. Someone made a bid. Everyone looked at the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man's entire body was shrouded in black, and he wore half a mask. He was hiding his identity. Shen Xinghe glanced at the black-robed old man, but did not say a word. Chen Tian, on the other hand, had no intention of making a bid. Soon, people began to call out bids. In a short while, the price had reached 2,500 secret crystals, and it was still rising. Inside Fu Wenzong's ancestral hall, Yi Xian was still learning Talisman Dao from Fu Xiaotian. He was currently drawing a purple talisman, and he had already failed 3 times. In front of Yi Xian, Fu Xiaotian watched quietly. He would give some pointers from time to time. Just like that, Yi Xian quickly drew the first purple talisman. However, Fu Xiaotian shook his head, not very satisfied. Yi Xian looked at Fu Xiaotian. Fu Xiaotian said softly, "The quality is not good enough. We must make every talisman perfect. Only with perfection can we unleash its true power. This talisman of yours can only be considered a defective product. Start again." Yi Xian nodded. Okay. Then, he began to draw again. At this moment, Fu Xiaotian suddenly looked out of the hall. Soon, he frowned. That pagoda, obviously, he had already sensed the existence of the prison pagoda. In the talisman hall, the price had already risen to 5,000 secret crystals. One had to admit that this was already an astronomical figure. Even someone as wealthy as Fu Wenzong could not take out so many secret crystals at once. It was worth mentioning that until now, Chen Tian had not made a single bid. It was as if he was watching a show. Naturally, Shen Xinghe knew what Chen Tian meant. No matter who obtained the prison pagoda, they would eventually have to beg the Worldwide Academy. This was because the Worldwide Bookstore was located in the Worldwide Academy. Therefore, Chen Tian was not in a hurry at all. However, Shen Xinghe was not in a hurry either. After all, he had already given up on the prison pagoda. Once he got his hands on the treasure, he would hand it over. By then, Fu Wenzong would be able to escape. In a short while, the price of the prison pagoda had reached 8,200 secret crystals. The one who made the bid was still the old man in black. At this moment, the crowd was even more curious about the old man's identity. In the end, the prison pagoda was sold for 9,000 secret crystals. At the moment when the deal was made, Shen Xinghe looked at the old man in black. The old man pointed his finger and a storage ring appeared in front of Shen Xinghe. Inside the storage ring, there were exactly 9,000 secret crystals. 9,000 secret crystals. Shen Xinghe took a deep look at the old man in black. Only those few super forces could take out 9,000 secret crystals in one go. Shen Xinghe nodded slightly. He pointed his finger and a Xiao Ta appeared in front of the old man in black. It was the prison pagoda. Chen Tian looked at Shen Xinghe. "Brother Shen, you're quite decisive." Shen Xinghe smiled. "Everyone, this item has been handed over. If you want it, don't come after me, Fu Wenzong." Everyone in the temple looked at the old man in black. However, the old man in black ignored them and turned around to leave. At this moment, Chen Tian suddenly smiled. "How should I address you, sir?" The old man in black ignored Chen Tian. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horizon. The crowd in the temple also dispersed. Some of them followed after him. Inside the temple, Shen Xinghe looked at Chen Tian. The latter smiled. "Brother Shen, please do me a favor." Shen Xinghe smiled. "A favor?" Chen Tian nodded. "There's something that I need Brother Shen's help with." Shen Xinghe said, "Tell me about it." Chen Tian smiled. "If I'm not wrong, this Yi Xian should still be in Fu Wenzong. I want to drag him out. However, I need your sect's help." Shen Xinghe fell silent. Chen Tian said, "Of course, it's not for nothing." As he spoke, he opened his palm, and a black ancient book appeared in his hand. "This item was left behind by my teacher. It records some of his insights and insights into runes. I believe that your sect needs this item." Upon hearing this, Shen Xinghe's expression became serious. The Prophet. The Prophet's attainments in runes could be said to be the best in the 5 dimensions. Even Patriarch Fu Wenzong was inferior to him. All these years, Fu Wenzong had been asking the Worldwide Academy for the ancient books on runes left behind by the Prophet. However, the Worldwide Academy had never agreed. Now, however, Chen Tian had taken the initiative to take it out. Shen Xinghe was silent for a moment. How can I help? Chen Tian's offer was a temptation that he could not refuse. Neither could Fu Wenzong. This was because the ancient books left behind by the Prophet might contain the method to create 7-colored talismans. Chen Tian smiled. It's very simple. I need to borrow a treasure from your sect. Shen Xinghe looked at Chen Tian. The God's Eyes Talisman. Chen Tian nodded. That's it. Shen Xinghe was silent. Chen Tian looked at the ancient book in his hand and smiled. As long as you are willing to borrow it once, I will give it to you immediately. Shen Xinghe was silent. The God's Eyes Talisman. This was a 7-colored talisman that had been created by Patriarch Fu Wenzong, Fu Shaotian. This talisman had a very powerful ability, which was to use it as the God's Eyes Talisman to observe everything in the world. Yi Xian's concealment technique was unparalleled. Even Chen Tian could not do anything about it. The only way to find Yi Xian was to use the God's Eyes Talisman. At this moment, Chen Tian suddenly said, as long as you find that Yi Xian, leave the rest to me. Fu Wenzong will not suffer any loss. When he spoke up to hear, he paused slightly and smiled. Brother Chen, according to my knowledge, your Tao of talismans has stagnated for a long time. This ancient book in my possession is an opportunity for you. Not only is it an opportunity for you, it's an opportunity for your talisman sect as well. Why are you still hesitating? Shen Xinghe was silent for a moment and nodded. All right. Just as Chen Tian had said, he could not resist this temptation. Seeing that Shen Xinghe had agreed, Chen Tian smiled and said, then I'll have to trouble you. Shen Xinghe did not say anything else. He opened his palm and a 7-colored talisman appeared in his hand. When Chen Tian saw this 7-colored talisman, his expression instantly turned serious. A 7-colored talisman. Even he did not dare to underestimate the power of this talisman. Shen Xinghe slowly closed his eyes and muttered something. After a while, the space in the area started to ripple like waves. A moment later, he frowned slightly. In the ancestral shrine. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared. Chen Tian also disappeared. Soon, the group appeared in front of Fu Wenzong's ancestral shrine. Shen Xinghe stared at the ancestral shrine. He had just walked over when an invisible force blocked his way. Shen Xinghe was stunned. What's going on? At the side, Chen Tian suddenly waved his sleeve, and a powerful force shook the ancestral shrine. However, the force disappeared without a trace before it could even get close to the ancestral shrine. Chen Tian narrowed his eyes slightly when he saw this. A moment later, he looked at Shen Xinghe, but the latter shook his head. He did not know what was going on either. At this moment, the door of the ancestral shrine suddenly opened, and a man walked out. It was Yi Xian. After Yi Xian walked out, he glanced at Chen Tian, and then looked at Shen Xinghe and smiled. According to seniority, you should call me Little Ancestral Master. Everyone was speechless. Chapter 873. Little Grandmaster. Everyone was dumbfounded. Shen Xinghe looked at Yi Xian. Are you toying with the old man? Yi Xian shook his head. Sect leader Shen, someone wants to see you. Come in. After saying that, he turned around and walked into the hall. At this time, Chen Tian suddenly made a move. He grabbed at Yi Xian, and a powerful force swept towards Yi Xian. At the same time, the space around Yi Xian froze. However, at this time, an invisible force shook out from the hall. In an instant, the space around Yi Xian returned to normal. Not only that, the force released by Chen Tian also disappeared. Seeing this scene, Chen Tian's face became extremely solemn. There was another expert in this hall. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly looked at Chen Tian. Dean Chen, come and hit me. Everyone, Chen Tian looked at Yi Xian, and his right hand slowly clenched. Suddenly, a blue talisman of the lowest grade flew out from the hall. In the blink of an eye, this talisman arrived in front of Chen Tian. Chen Tian's face changed, and he punched out with his right hand. Boom! Under the gazes of everyone, Chen Tian retreated explosively, and he retreated until he was outside the talisman sect. Everyone was petrified. By the time Chen Tian stopped, his whole arm had completely cracked. A blue talisman. Chen Tian looked in the direction of Fu Wenzong, and his expression was incomparably solemn. The opponent actually used a blue talisman to repel him. Who was it? In front of the ancestral hall, Shen Xinghe's expression also became solemn. After a moment of silence, he walked towards the ancestral hall. The others wanted to go in, but they were blocked by a mysterious power. After Shen Xinghe entered the hall, in addition to Yi Xian, there was another middle-aged man. When he saw this middle-aged man, Shen Xinghe was slightly stunned. In the next moment, he became excited and quickly bowed respectfully. Xinghe greets the patriarch. Fu Shaotian glanced at Shen Xinghe and smiled. Heavenly Talisman Master? Shen Xinghe nodded hurriedly. Yes. Fu Shaotian smiled and looked at Yi Xian. He's my new disciple. He had just accepted a disciple. Hearing this, Shen Xinghe's expression suddenly became a little strange. What should he be called when he was the disciple of his own ancestor? As Yi Xian had said, he really had to call him Little Grandmaster. Shen Xinghe looked at Fu Shaotian. He hesitated for a moment and then said, Grandmaster, why is that? He still couldn't understand why Fu Shaotian accepted Yi Xian as his disciple. Fu Shaotian smiled and said, Is there something you're worried about? Shen Xinghe nodded. Yi Xian has a fifth-dimensional treasure. He is the archenemy of the Worldwide Academy. Moreover, he has a lot of karma. If our Fu Wenzong is related to him, I'm afraid, at this point, he didn't continue speaking. Fu Shaotian smiled and said, This is also an opportunity for Fu Wenzong, isn't it? Shen Xinghe said in a deep voice, I know. However, I don't want Fu Wenzong to be involved in this dispute. Fu Shaotian nodded. As the sect leader, you should naturally consider this. However, some things can't be avoided. Now, I have accepted him as my disciple. Are you going to accept him or not? Of course, if you don't, it doesn't matter. I will let him leave Fu Wenzong. Shen Xinghe smiled bitterly. Grandmaster, aren't you asking for my life? How can I, Fu Wenzong, refuse to accept Grandmaster's disciple? Green City, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestor, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as the crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a young man with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of Yi Clan. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she rushed over despite her illness. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the crown prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder. However, she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral hall. Once again, she bowed to the elders. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He's fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using groundless excuses to strip him of his position. This is unfair. Impudent. The great elder suddenly raged. Whether he's stripped or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new crown prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. He should be flogged 30 times as a warning. The great elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince, Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, young master Yi Lang inherits the crown prince's position. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she didn't cry. She just held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. This subordinate, Zhang Mu, greets the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I'll need 10 personal guards. From now on, you'll be my personal guard. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the crown prince, even if it means death. Yi Lang nodded. Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Do not hold back. Understood. Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something, and he suddenly stopped. Within the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall, all the elders frowned. The great elder's eyes narrowed, and his face darkened. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger, leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Bang! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop, and he rushed towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, your man? As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu, and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pung! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the Yi clan elders. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a hint of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she had rushed over despite her illness. The old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and asked timidly, Great Elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan, what are you butting in for? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, and did not dare to look at the Great Elder. However, she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. Once again, she bowed to the elders. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan for the rights to the mine. He is fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to strip him of his position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Whether he's stripped or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, young master Yi Lang inherits the prince's position, and it's everyone's wish. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she didn't cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and said with a smile, What's your name? The guard quickly bowed. This subordinate, Zhang Mu, greets the prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the prince, I'll need 10 personal guards. From now on, you'll be my personal guard. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed, and quickly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through water and tread on fire for the prince, even if it means death. Yi Lang nodded. Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Do not hold back. Understood? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something, and he suddenly stopped. Within the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered, and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Within the ancestral hall, all the elders began to frown. The Great Elder's eyes narrowed, and his face darkened. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Bang! Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop, and charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me." Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pang! Chapter 874. Fu Wenzong, Talisman Hall. Many elders of Fu Wenzong had gathered in the hall. Even some talisman masters who had not shown up for a long time had appeared in the hall. Yi Xian was among them. Moreover, his position was a little special. He was next to Shen Xinghe. On the right of Yi Xian were Fu Wenzong, Su Muqian and Lu Yong. These two could be considered as the second and third in command of Fu Wenzong. However, at this moment, these two were behind Yi Xian. Lu Yong and Su Muqian were extremely puzzled. Why? Not only the two of them, but all the experts of Fu Wenzong in the hall had the same question in their minds. Why did Shen Xinghe protect Yi Xian and offend the entire worldwide academy? At this moment, an elder suddenly said, "Sect leader, the old man is a straightforward person. Speak your mind." As he said that, he glanced at Yi Xian. "Sect leader, I feel that no matter what the reason is, Fu Wenzong should not become enemies with the worldwide academy for one person. It's not worth it." A middle-aged man stood out as well. Presently, the Myriad Dimension Academy's actions are equivalent to a direct declaration of war against our talisman sect. Moreover, they've already started to act against our members, and some clans and sects that have attached themselves to us have been targeted by the Myriad Dimension Academy. If this continues, then it'll be extremely disadvantageous to our talisman sect. Very soon, one after another, Fu Wenzong experts stood out. Their meaning was simple. It was not worth becoming enemies with the worldwide academy for the sake of Yi Xian. It was not worth it at all. At this moment, another elder stood out. He looked at Yi Xian with an unfriendly expression. "Sect leader, this person is not easy to deal with." "It's really, shut up." At this moment, Shen Xinghe, who had been silent, suddenly said. The old man immediately stopped. The hall quietened down in an instant. Shen Xinghe glanced at the crowd. "Is it time for me to speak?" As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Little Grandmaster, why don't you say it?" "Little Grandmaster." Hearing this, everyone in the hall was shocked and looked at Yi Xian. Lu Yong and Su Muqian also looked at Yi Xian with shock in their eyes. "Little Grandmaster?" Lu Yong looked at Shen Xinghe. "Sect Master, this." Shen Xinghe said softly, "Everyone should know that something special happened in the ancestral shrine. Before that, the patriarch appeared." The patriarch had appeared. All the spectators were shocked when they heard this. Fu Xiaotian. In the hearts of Fu Wenzong and the others, this person was like a god. Because there wouldn't be a Fu Wenzong without him. Meanwhile, Shen Xinghe said, "The patriarch has taken him as his personal disciple. The little grandmaster possesses the patriarch's inheritance now, and he's the hope of our Fu Wenzong. Because only he has the highest chance of drawing a 7-colored talisman." A 7-colored talisman. All the spectators gazed at Yi Xian with complicated expressions. Meanwhile, Lu Yong suddenly said, "Sect Master, did the patriarch say anything else?" Shen Xinghe spoke softly. "He asked us to properly assist the little grandmaster." "Of course, he said that as well. If we feel that the little grandmaster will implicate our Fu Wenzong, then we can ask him to leave. He won't say anything about it." What a joke. Meanwhile, Su Muqian spoke abruptly, since he obtained the patriarch's inheritance, then he belongs to us, Fu Wenzong. That's because he's a member of my rune sect. How can we let him leave? Lu Yong nodded lightly. The patriarch definitely has his reasons for doing this. As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian. However, the little grandmaster really is in a bad situation right now. The important matter at hand is to resolve the danger he's in. An old man spoke solemnly. The worldwide academy is going too far. They clearly know that the little grandmaster belongs to me, Fu Wenzong, yet they still intend to kill him. They're not taking me, Fu Wenzong, seriously at all. Since they want to fight, then let's fight. Do you think that I, Fu Wenzong, would fear the Worldwide Academy? A middle-aged man spoke as well. Since the Worldwide Academy has declared war on us, then we'll fight them. Sect Master, I suggest that we immediately recall all the disciples of Fu Wenzong. Besides that, we old fellows shouldn't just stand by and do nothing. Start drawing talismans. The more the better. Besides that, it's time for those powers that owe us a favor to be repaid. Lu Yong suddenly spoke softly. Now is the time to decide who our true friends are and who are fake. As he spoke, he gazed at Shen Xinghe and said, it's a critical moment right now, and we can't lose in terms of momentum. Because once we lose, then many powers that are hesitating will turn against the Worldwide Academy. So, I suggest that we take the initiative to attack. Since we're already enemies, then we should take the initiative to gain the upper hand. When they heard this, everyone gazed at Lu Yong. Lu Yong continued, directly dispatch forces to kill the students of the Worldwide Academy. Meanwhile, Su Muqian hesitated for a moment before he said, if we do that, then there'll really be no room for negotiation. Lu Yong shook his head. The little grandmaster is an extraordinary genius, and he's even obtained the founding ancestor's inheritance now. Under such circumstances, do you think Shen Tian would dare to allow him to live? Su Muqian fell silent. Just as Lu Yong had said, Yi Xian was an extraordinary genius himself. His strength was so high at such a young age, and it was extremely rare even in the fifth dimension. Now, Yi Xian had obtained the inheritance of the founding ancestor Fu Wenzong. If he were to continue growing like this, then who wouldn't be afraid? So, the Worldwide Academy would absolutely not allow Yi Xian to grow. Meanwhile, Lu Yong said, the Worldwide Academy won't let the little grandmaster off, so they'll definitely attack. Since they'll definitely attack, then why don't we make the first move? There are two benefits to making the first move. Firstly, we'll be able to take the Worldwide Academy by surprise. Secondly, we'll be able to let the world know that our Fu Wenzong isn't afraid of the Worldwide Academy. Only in this way would those indecisive powers lean towards us. Shen Xinghe nodded. All right. Lu Yong continued, there's one more thing. Compared to the Worldwide Academy, our overall strength is a bit weaker. Of course, the difference isn't huge. However, if the Worldwide Academy doesn't have the help of other powers, they won't dare to fight to the death with our Fu Wenzong. Because if they fight to the death, even if our Fu Wenzong is destroyed, their Worldwide Academy will be crippled. So, if I'm not wrong, the Worldwide Academy will definitely rope in other powers. And we, too, need to rope in other powers. Moreover, we need to rope in those superpowers. Speaking up to this point, he paused before continuing, from now on, we need to draw more talismans. It's best if we draw some orange talismans. Also, rope in those aristocratic families and some big powers. Leave this matter to me. Shen Xinghe nodded. I naturally don't have to worry about leaving it to you. As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian. Young martial ancestor, don't leave Fu Wenzong during this period of time. Stay in the sect and study the talisman Dao well. If you're able to draw 7 colored talismans, then you'll be able to change my fate completely. Yi Xian glanced at them and said, everyone, even though I've obtained master's inheritance, and I can be considered to be a member of Fu Wenzong, I have to remind all of you that I might not be a person who knows my place. Simply put, trouble follows me wherever I go. Moreover, each enemy is stronger than the last. If I stay in Fu Wenzhong, then I'm afraid I'll drag Fu Wenzhong down with me in the future. So, if all of you don't mind, then I can leave Fu Wenzhong and absolutely won't drag Fu Wenzhong down with me. If it was in the past, he would definitely want Fu Wenzhong to fight to the death with the Worldwide Academy. But it was different now. He'd obtained Fu Xiaotian's inheritance, so if he still schemed against Fu Wenzhong, then he would truly be worse than a pig or a dog. So, he wasn't willing to drag Fu Wenzhong down with him. Meanwhile, Lu Yong spoke abruptly, "Young martial ancestor, this isn't a question of whether you'll be a burden or not. You've obtained the ancestor's inheritance, so you're a member of Fu Wenzhong. If we abandon you because of fear of the Worldwide Academy, then wouldn't that disappoint countless disciples of Fu Wenzhong? Moreover, how would we be able to face the ancestor's spirit in heaven? Your problem is Fu Wenzhong's problem. As for the Worldwide Academy, you don't need to think too much about it. Even though our Fu Wenzhong isn't as strong as the Worldwide Academy, Fu Wenzhong, isn't weak either. If the Worldwide Academy wants to bully us, then it won't be that easy." Su Muqian nodded. "Young martial ancestor, you've just arrived in the 5th dimension, so you might not be very clear about my strength. I, Fu Wenzhong, have inherited it for so many years. Even though I'm not a top power in the 5th dimension, there aren't any powers that dare to bully us at will." Yi Xingguan thought about it and said, "Everyone, I still have some friends in the 4th dimension. They're extremely strong, so I want them to come here." Shen Xinghe said with a smile, "Is it Xiao Qi, and Lanxiu, and the others?" Yi Xingguan looked at Shen Xinghe, and the latter said with a smile, "We've investigated you before, young martial ancestor. Therefore, we know a little about you and your friends, Dao Yi. Those few people are all extraordinary figures." Yi Xinghe nodded. "Can they come to Fu Wenzhong?" Shen Xinghe said, "Of course they can. However, as far as I know, they're currently guarding the 4th dimension for you. If they come." Speaking up to here, he paused and said, "How about this, I'll send some people to the 4th dimension and let them guard it for you. Even though I can't guarantee that they'll be able to guard the 4th dimension well, at least they can make some people feel apprehensive." Yi Xingguan said in a deep voice, "Many thanks." Shen Xinghe said with a smile, "It's a piece of cake." Saying this, he looked at Su Muqian. "Pick a few people and let them bring 2 orange talismans to the 4th dimension. If they meet someone they know, ask them to give me, Fu Wenzhong, some face and not target the 4th dimension. If they meet someone they're not familiar with, say hello. If they don't leave, kill them directly." Su Muqian nodded. "I'll handle this matter." Saying this, he turned around and left. Shen Xinghe looked at Yi Xinghe and said, "Remember, don't go out during this period of time." Yi Xinghe nodded. "I'll study the rune Dao during this period of time." Shen Xinghe smiled and said, "You've obtained martial ancestors' inheritance, so you must properly absorb it. During this period of time, I'll personally guide you. As for the matters outside, we'll handle it." Lu Yong, who was at the side, also said, "Previously, you were alone. But now, you're Fu Wenzhong's little martial ancestor. Don't worry, no matter what happens, I, Fu Wenzhong, will advance and retreat together with you." Actually, everyone was very satisfied with Yi Xingguan. Not only because Yi Xingguan had obtained martial ancestor Fu Wenzhong's inheritance, but also because Yi Xingguan himself was truly monstrous. Fu Wenzhong did not lack people with monstrous talent in Rune Dao, but he lacked people with extremely strong combat strength. Yi Xingguan's combat strength could only be described as terrifying. In addition, he had obtained martial ancestor Fu Wenzhong's inheritance. Therefore, it was completely worth it to start a war with the Worldwide Academy for Yi Xingguan. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.